entire thing was just institutions. It's next level. This industry is going to the next level. And guys, I don't know what else to say. I'm bullish. You said it. You finally said it. I'm so bullish. Andy's bullish. I'm bullish. We're bullish. Yo. Happy President's Day, Rob.
Happy President's Day to all the presidents out there.
Yeah, the president this time around doesn't really get much global support, so we're going to have to celebrate for him. Happy President's Day, Mr. Trump.
Go presidents.
They really don't like Americans out there globally now because of Trump. Not great.
Oh, yeah.
Not great for the boys.
Yeah, he's in a tough spot here, but
Is
we're
he?
not a politics show, so...
How was your weekend, man?
Deep into that. It's pretty good. Finally, some warmer weather down here in Florida. Florida's supposed to be warm. Finally,
Really?
gets back into the 70s. That was nice. Got outside, touched some grass, did a lot of reading. So that was pretty chill as well. And just overall had a good weekend. What about you?
Nice, man. I skied a bunch, and I spent yesterday on Open Claw. I got my Chef Clanker robot here. I probably got to figure out how to get this guy to be recording my voice. So I'm going to text him right now and say, I'm on stream. How do I get you to record my audio? See what he says. Basically, I've just been cooking on this. I don't know. I got him his own Gmail account.
Mm-hmm.
He's connected to my calendar, can view my calendar. He's editing Google Docs. I got him reminding me of stuff. He's sending me a daily news briefing and calendar update. So I have a flight to Denver tonight at 6:44 p.m. it looks like. Yeah, man, just spent a good bit of time on Claudebot yesterday, so it was pretty fun.
And one of the first things you did was give it like a Telegram handle so you could communicate with it via Telegram. You didn't have to bother with the command line interface.
Yeah, but then you end up just wasting a bunch of OpenAI or Anthropic credits. So I had to buy more credits. It doesn't just use the chat credits; it uses the API console.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll maybe I got to set up Granola. I think.
Yeah,
so.
granola and kimchi. I think Kimi is an open source model. And so you can, rather than sending your requests to Claude, you can send them to Kimi and save like an order of magnitude on tokens.
Yeah, I can use Granola for this. And I've got, this thing has its own Google Drive, its own email, its own Telegram. It's pretty cool. So the clankers are coming for sure. We got a sick lineup today. We actually have Gmoney on as the last person. He was doing a lot in this kind of like open claw AI stuff. So I wanted to get him on. He willingly wanted to come on and join. So should be fun. Bullet Mainnet as well, and our friend Sean from Frax on Stabled Up. So that's our lineup today, guys. It's a Monday. I think it's a day off in the States, but we're not taking the day off. So we're here. We're live.
Yeah, man. And so let's get into it. We've got some things to cover, things that happened over the weekend and the end of last week. And we've got a rumor mill, which has been cooking. And so we're going to get into that as well. Very, very speculative news section here today. Let's get into it. First up, we've got Grayscale converting their trust into an ETF. And so obviously this is on the heels of the Aave announcement last week.
Yep.
The Aave will win proposal, as well as Stani's latest article describing his vision for Aave in the coming 25 years, on track to capture $30 to $50 trillion by 2050 on the heels of the energy abundance movement transformation. He thinks Aave can be a financier of energy abundance.
I saw somebody say that, it's bear market when protocols are positioning as Mesopotamia in their marketing. Paul Barron is in the chat, says, Robinhood Chain AI agent season will probably be epic. AI agents are still too nerdy of a topic. Definitely could happen. Would be interesting for sure. Robinhood Chain is on testnet, as you guys saw from last week. But yeah, I mean, Rob, this news came directly after the proposal, so I could not tell if it was preempted or if it was part of kind of the broader push from Aave's team. But yeah, man, I mean, look, this probably is going to go through. We're going to see more of these ETFs pass. I expect Aave's to go through. I don't really think it changes much on the material demand side. It gives you some institutional access for sure. I think that's important. But as we've seen with other ETFs so far in this bear market, doesn't really matter if you have an ETF or not. The market has not been that friendly. So, yeah.
And the part I'll push back on is the fact that BlackRock's buying Uniswap. We're going to get into Apollo buying Morpho.
Yeah.
And I think with Aave's track record and their current positioning, they're another prime target for acquisition by major asset managers and financial institutions.
Yeah, they're going to be listed under ticker GAVE, 2.5% fee, and they'll use Coinbase as the custodian. This is the second firm after Bitwise to seek U.S. regulatory clarity for the Aave ETF. And Grayscale is going to actually hold Aave tokens directly. So yeah, Aave currently has a 21 shares ETP on NASDAQ, Stockholm, and Global X product in Germany. So hope this goes through for them. I anticipate it will. And this is a basic headline these days, but it's pretty incredible how far we've came that we just are getting ETFs for crypto assets now. So, all right, let's move on here from the lovely Aave ETF. Aave founder pitches $50 trillion abundant asset boom to drive DeFi. Solar energy could represent $15 to $30 trillion of tokenized assets, enabling new lending and investment opportunities. Projects could tokenize assets like $100 million solar installations, Stani claims, to borrow against them, creating scalable, low-risk yield for investors. This kind of comes into our looping thoughts with regards to how RWA looping is going to happen. And yeah, it could extend past solar into batteries, robotics, vertical farming, semiconductors, and even 3D printing technologies. This was part of the show that we had with Stani. If you guys haven't seen that on YouTube, it is on YouTube. It is our latest video. Check it out. He talks about his abundance thesis a bit, and he also just wrote a post on it. And yeah, guys, I mean, I think this is an ambitious goal. Could work out. Currently seems far-fetched, but we shall see how the abundance, the future, the powering the abundance trend happens. But what I don't think is far-fetched is the idea of tokenizing all these different types of assets and bringing them on chain and getting different types of yield opportunities and borrowing opportunities against certain tokenized assets that don't exist today. And I do believe Aave would be the place for that. So Yeah, it is definitely a feasible
Yeah.
idea. In its current form, seems far fetched.
Putting aside the moon math of 30 to $50 trillion of abundance
Yeah.
assets, this is the trend that we believe is going to continue. I spent some time on Aave Horizon over the weekend looking at, what are some of these funds that are leading in terms of collateralization. Aave Horizon being the RWA platform where, you can lend uh, assets like Superstate, you can lend tokenized treasury funds. Um, I'm actually going to pull it up now so I can kind of share with you guys what I found, which was that a lot of these things, actually, all of the assets that you can collateralize are not earning any interest. The
Mm.
primary benefit of Aave Horizon is to generate liquidity off of these assets, meaning that Superstate tokenized treasury fund might be earning you 4, 5, 6, 7%. You're going to continue to recoup that because you own that fund, you own that asset, and it is still positioned uh, in Aave. You're not owning, and there's no one borrowing these things. These things are basically securities. They're regulated as such, and so there's no one that's going to short these securities, right? But you can continue to earn the interest provided to you in these products as you collateralize them and borrow against them. And so what you end up having is you have $50 million of Super States crypto credit fund on Aave Horizon, and then you have stable coins, upwards of $200 million of Ripple USD, 80 million of which is being borrowed. And this is what we're seeing as the unlock, right? And so if I own 100 million of super state, put it into Aave, then I can borrow 80 million. I can go use that to buy more super state credit fund, lever up on this product that's generating me 4, 5, 6, 7%. I'm calling this institutional yield farming. I think that's an appropriate term for it. Uh, we've seen how these things go in DeFi. Are we going to follow the same path? I hope not. We don't want this to end in disaster, but ultimately, the extension of credit on chain is continuing to drive more adoption into these products.
Kyle Samani had that tweet about it, saying that institutional looping is going to be huge. I think he's right. I think he's on the right train of thought. I think that is the main use case. And so I think that these lending markets, these over collateralized lending markets like Horizon, Morpho's Vault, and Morpho as well, and a couple others. Yeah, clearly Apollo is going to be using Morpho. Clearly, institutions are going to want to be looping RWAs to get more yield and to get basically more, yeah, to get more credit against them. So um, that is the Aave abundance thesis. Let's keep it rolling here. BlackRock Robinhood lead Wall Street's DeFi breakthrough. Pretty crazy week last week, guys. If you were paying attention to all of the DeFi happenings, um, major Wall Street firms have advanced DeFi integration with multiple tokenization initiatives. So BlackRock launches Buildle token on Uniswap, making its first direct DeFi trading integration with treasury-backed assets. Pretty big. This was obviously, we saw the pump and the retrace on Uniswap. The market was kind of excited about it, but not nearly as excited about the Aave news or the Morpho news, as both of those tokens have held up quite a bit better. Those are part of our N7 index, guys. If you've been watching my Twitter, I've been talking about the N7 outperformance, led mostly by Hype, Sky, Morpho, and now Aave really having a strong bounce off the lows as well. We do not have Uniswap in our N7 index. Um, just not, just not part of what we're considering to be this next phase. I think that they can still do well in a bull market, but not something that we're like personally trying to allocate to at the current moment. I mean, given it's a bear market, this outperformance thesis is tough to. It's tough. Maybe it's even easier to actually have in the bear market, but we'll see. We'll see kind of where that ends up. Also, Ondo enabled tokenized stocks for DeFi platforms. So allowing basically what we're talking about here just now with Aave's Horizon, basically allowing the tokenized stocks to be used in lending markets, vaults, structured products. Again, guys, the big unlock for tokenization is not just tokenizing assets; it's tokenizing these assets and using them in DeFi. So yeah, pretty big week last week for neo finance, for tokenization as a whole.
Oh yeah. Look, I put a tweet out there. Tokenization is not the end game; it's the beginning, which I think speaks to how this progression is going to play out. First, we have the assets represented on chain. It's you have a thing on chain in a void. If there's nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah.
What is it? What is it really giving you? Once you give some utility to these tokenized products, you're able to lend against them. You're able to extend credit. You're able to loop, leverage, deposit, all of these things. Then it gets really interesting. And I think because we've seen DeFi play out over multiple cycles, we're in a very unique position to see how this is applied to legacy financial instruments. Meaning that a lot of this, I think, is going to follow a very similar playbook. It's just going to happen to higher quality assets.
Mm.
And so we're going to see, what were the three components back in DeFi summer? If I remember correctly, it was like every chain needs a DEX, every chain needs a lending market, every chain needs a yield aggregator. I
Mm.
think we're going to see a lot of those same principles play out at the institutional scale. And so
Mm.
now you see BlackRock going into Uniswap. All right. And then you see Apollo going into Morpho. And then you
Yep.
have the entire vault complex, which is essentially yield aggregation. And so
Yep.
I think we're seeing a lot of these same principles play out. They're happening at scale. And I think it would be worthwhile to kind of go back and think to yourself, what were the best performers in DeFi summer, and try to reposition in the more modern institutional DeFi era for
Yep.
those assets, and then
Yep.
position yourself for upside accordingly. Um,
So like every chain needs those. Every institution is going to need a DEX to have their products traded on. Every institution is going to need a lending market to be able to facilitate the lending of their assets
yeah,
and the
the,
borrowing. And maybe every institution is going to need a vault provider or some sort of like
he,
framework for that.
yes, and but here's the difference. It's not chain centric. I think it's asset centric this time.
Mm.
So you're right, absolutely. Before every chain needed each of those components, but now if you look at BlackRock and you look at Biddle, that is their vector, that is their portal to the on-chain universe, and so they're looking at everything through the lens of Biddle, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
now
get you.
Biddle needs a decentralized exchange. Biddle needs a lending market where people can facilitate,
Yep.
borrowing. Biddle needs a yield aggregator where you can deposit it as collateral and then source some yield aggregation around it. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of these same things play out. Um, and ultimately, I think there's probably an argument here uh, to build out the N7 to like an N20 or an N30 or something like that, because more and more teams are going to reposition themselves around this thesis. I think the seven that we chose were just steadfast. They've been building towards it since the beginning. We believe that they're going to be the outperformers, but there's going to be multiple, like Uniswap, right? There's going to be multiple people that are going to be benefactors of this institutional adoption.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. Oh, agreed. Biddle is an awesome, awesome asset name, by the way, for BlackRock and securitized. All right, guys, let's move on from the institutional neo finance realm. We have a Sam Altman tweet, one of the rare that we cover here in the AI world. Peter Steinberger is joining OpenAI to drive the next generation of personal agents. OpenClaw will live in a foundation as an open source project that OpenAI will continue to support. The future is going to be extremely multi-agent, and it's important to us to support open sources as part of that. Yeah,
Best comment I saw on this was that open claw becomes closed claw.
yeah, from Autism Capital or something.
Yeah, because obviously
Um,
OpenAI is closed
Closed
source,
source.
not they're the for-profit company that, they said they wouldn't become.
I thought it was
Yeah.
funny that this announcement came out. So I set up OpenClaw on Saturday, barely even set it up. Then yesterday, I really, really actually got into the weeds and set it up and got it live. And now I'm just going to keep using it on all my Mac Mini that I use for streaming and for the show and whatnot. And um, I thought it was funny that this announcement came out as I was setting up my OpenClaw. Like I'm like the early majority, not like the pioneer, but like the early majority. And then boom, this guy gets acquired. I think it's going to help the product for sure. They're shipping such fast updates to the product every day.
Mhm.
Apparently, Peter's been working like 18 hours a day or something crazy. But yeah, I mean, kind of a fumble for Claude. Like
Oh, yeah.
all of this stuff is in Claude. you use Claude for it. I'm using Anthropic's model for OpenClaw, but you can use any model for the like for your you can use any
And that
model on
that's why I'm telling
OpenClaw.
you to switch to Kimmy, and then you'll end up it's just as good as Claude, and you end up saving on all those tokens.
Really?
Yeah. I heard the all I can't take credit for this. I heard the all-in guys talking about it. Jason Calacanis was setting up his Claude bot instances for his company. And they actually give a lot of he gives like a lot of guidance as to how he's setting it up, given he's got a media podcast conglomerate of sorts.
Hmm.
It's particularly useful for here at the Rollup. So and then he also talked about using Kimmy. They go back and forth about it.
Yeah, I've got mine slowly but surely getting dialed in. Right now, I'm just kind of using it as like a I don't know. Claude was telling me to use it as a chief of staff. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I'm just funneling so many different ideas and thoughts into it, etc. But yeah, I guess you could just plug it into a cheaper model. Like I've got it running on Sonnet right now to save tokens on Claude. But you're saying, Kimmy, you can just get way cheaper rates than using Claude, basically.
And then you can instruct it to go use Claude when it's a very high value or high functioning task,
Yeah,
and it'll switch from the open source model that it uses for the grunt of its work
yeah.
over to a better, theoretically better, right? Marginally so, better model when it's time to do a high ROI task.
Yep. Yep. Very cool. Very cool. Well, congrats to Peter and to OpenAI. This is definitely the best like kind of AI implementation that we've seen so far. I don't really think it's that good. I think it's pretty much the same as Claude Code. It does have this heartbeat thing that's pretty cool where it like updates itself every 2, 3 hours. It like checks for anything that it needs to do. I've also not had it running overnight yet. So maybe tonight I'll try to give it a bunch of tasks and see if I can wake up in the morning to some sort of completion. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool for sure. All right, let's move on. Of Sam again. Congrats to Peter and the team.
Pretty cool to see how Claude was just running away with the AI race, and then OpenAI went and hired
Yeah, because
this
apparently
guy.
they were Anthropic was sending them legal lawyer letters and legal
Well, that was
paperwork
why
about the naming and all that.
exactly, that was why it went from Claude bot to OpenClaw, because it was spelled like that, and there was Molt book that didn't really catch on. Ultimately, they landed on Claude bot or OpenClaw. But yeah, it started off, primarily using and running on Claude and some branding. It
Yeah,
was just a fumble. I mean, Claude
yeah.
was doing so well. OpenAI was, running commercials and advertisements in their responses. They were losing bad.
I
And then
know.
and then Claude fumbled and and OpenAI just struck the opportunity. So,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
oh
All
yeah.
right, so Jason Choi, Tangent co-founder, urges grads to optimize for rapid wealth creation, not traditional careers. This is like the whole gamble your way out of the permanent underclass. Recommends high risk crypto or stock trading or bootstrapping AI apps for fast acqui-hires. He dismisses consulting and IB paths as they will become obsolete in the face of AI disruption. Frames this decision around a 5-year AI AGI timeline that could perma nuke jobs. This definitely aligns with aggressive AGI forecasts from Sam Altman in the near term, Dario Amode as well, 2026 to 2030. Others, I mean, people in the comments were questioning and criticizing the survivability post AGI, capital access, feasibility for non-elite grads. Like this guy just makes it seem easy to just go and start hyper gambling from like 1K to a mil. Yeah, I mean, there's this big AI urgency narrative, real world actual constraints to the reality of this, like the difficulty that it really is to make this work. Um, yeah, I mean, this is an interesting tweet, and I don't know. I think it just kind of I feel validated in the decision to drop out. I feel um I feel like this narrative is way too overused though. Like the whole world's coming to an end because of AI and you need to get rich quick. I don't really think it's the right way to think about it. But here we are.
Yeah, there's a few things I disagree with in this tweet. First is that there's going to be like this permanent overclass and permanent underclass once AGI hits. Um, there's gonna be people that are using it. There's gonna be people that aren't using it. There's gonna be a middle class, even if that middle class does start to decay, uh, and the wealth inequality gap does diverge. It's still going to the middle class is still going to exist in some way, shape, or form. Obviously, you want to try to rise to the top, and so harnessing AI to do that is going to be especially useful. I think hyper gambling is just that. It's just gambling. It's just as easy to lose the house as it is to. It's actually much easier to lose the house than to win it all. So I think that is a very unlikely path to success. More likely is we're going to see single team entrepreneurs. We're going to see more companies like Hyperliquid that are doing extremely well, that have not that many employees, but it takes pretty specific domain expertise in order to apply AI well enough to gain market share in a particular industry to the extent that you can win a segment of the market. Everyone's got access to these tools now. You're going to need to do some pretty specific research into an area that you're hyper interested in order to amass enough expertise in that area to do well. The other thing that I would, I guess, add to this tweet, if I'm a fresh grad, and even if you accept the premise about this perma nuking the job market, which is a debate in and of itself, is I think one of the more lucrative things that you can do is you can start to apply this software to the world of atoms. Like robots, I don't know if you saw this video from China about like their dancing robots. The difference between 2025 and 2026 was insane. Like 2025, they still moved like a robot, right? Like do the robot.
Yeah.
Like 2026, they're dancing. They're nimble, they're
No
agile,
way.
they're light on their feet. It's incredible. I think starting to build for more of the industry using robotics and more like machinery is going to and there was another video that I think applies to the same thesis. They 3D printed an entire boat. And so they've got one robot in this factory and then a giant printer. Like, and it just spits out this boat. It's an
like a
insane
life-size
video.
boat.
A life-size boat. Yeah. And it's just this horizontal machine in this giant warehouse, and it's just spitting
No
out a
way.
boat. It's one piece of like steel or metal, and it just spits it out. It's an incredible thing to see. I'm sure you're gonna see the video, I'm sure. And so applying software, like getting more involved into the machinery of these things and then applying AI to these worlds. Like, remember when AI first came out, the thing was like, be a welder or be a plumber? I don't think that's the play. I think it's like, use this software and AI to develop the algorithms or the machines that 3D printers are going to use or robots are going to use. Like build the philosophy for the robot is what I'm saying. Like it's going to be a software brain and a hardware body,
Yeah.
but like the software still it's going to need to be trained and optimized and programmed for certain robotic tasks. I think that is where there's a big gap in the market. And if I'm a fresh grad, that's where I'm spending my time.
In Chinese warehouses doing 3D printing. Gotta love it. All right, guys, we're gonna take a quick standby, quick commercial break. We're gonna get stabled up episode number 21 with Sean Kelley, the VP of Comms at Frax. We'll be right back in just about 30 seconds. Let's get the show on the road. If you're here watching on YouTube, guys, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We're live every day. We have East Denver this week. We got 2 more shows this week, rolling into NearCon next week in SF for more AI conversations, and then the big upgrade in March. So, guys, see you guys in just a second.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Welcome back to another episode of Stabled Up, our premier weekly show covering the ins and outs of digital dollars, stablecoins, and the future of decentralized finance.
The show is made possible by Frax, and Frax is powering the financial engine of the internet, powering FRX USD and Genius compliant stablecoins. This is the stablecoin Supercycle made possible by Frax. Now enjoy Stabled Up, our weekly stablecoin show.
Alrighty, Sean, what's going on, man? Welcome back to Stabled Up, episode number 21, our weekly premier stablecoin show brought to you by our friends at Frax with their FRX USD product, Fractal Chain, and more. Today, we're talking about Sean Kelley, VP of Partnerships and Comms at Frax, about FRX USD, yield forwarding stablecoins. We've been really bulled up on RWA looping as of recently as well, and just generally what we've seen in the DeFi market with BlackRock and Uniswap, Morpho and Apollo, Aave's new proposal, and just generally how this space is evolving. So, Sean, good to have you on, man.
Hey, happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, would love a bit of an update from Frax. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into all of the things as far as how we're seeing some of the DeFi elements unfold. I don't know if you caught maybe more in the beginning part of the stream. We were talking about institutional yield farming, which is that's what it feels like what's happening as these things are tokenized. The next unlock is incorporating them into some of the lending products, lending markets, so that you can gain liquidity, either use that, buy another tokenized treasury, put in another fund, use it somewhere else. That seems like it's something that's starting to pick up steam now. And before we get into some of these institutional, yield use cases, just would love an update on what's happening at Frax, over the last few weeks. I think we had Sam on earlier this year, but you guys are always cooking. So I love an update.
Definitely. Yeah. So 2025 was really a foundational year for us in terms of building the infrastructure needed in order to support Frax USD growth. And then this year is when we're really going to start delivering on that growth. It's both from a DeFi side as well as a traditional finance side. So on the DeFi side of things, we have a peg keeper strategy going where we pair with DeFi stablecoins, and over a dozen protocols have chosen to pair their core stablecoin with Frax USD. And the reason they do that is they trust Frax USD to be as secure as USDC or USDT, but the underlying yield goes into incentivizing liquidity. So it creates a more sustainable DeFi ecosystem. And that strategy expands beyond just peg keepers. It also goes into DeFi protocols as a whole. We're talking with a lot of early stage DeFi protocols who want to build on top of Frax USD as a core asset. But then also established DeFi protocols like Aave Frax USD is being proposed to be integrated into Aave, and we're taking the underlying yield from there and using it to make sure that people who are holding, for example, a Frax USD are getting at least the risk-free rate, and also incentivizing ESCO holdings. So it's just a more sustainable DeFi ecosystem, more productive, more capital efficient, and that's what DeFi is always looking for. And then on the traditional finance side, because we have these relationships with BlackRock and Wisdom Tree and Superstate, we have connections to all these traditional finance institutions. So we're trusted in that respect, and people trust our brand over 5 years of security in order to build on top of. And so more recently, we announced ATW, which is a New York City investment bank. They put 50 million into Frax USD to power some of their convertible payments. They're behind a lot of the digital asset treasury companies. But we're also cooking up some pretty large partnerships around stablecoins and stablecoin real world use cases and payments. As you've seen, all these traditional financial institutions are coming on chain, and they're looking for trusted partners to do it with. So they're not going to go with some new stablecoin in order to do that. They're going to go with a name like Frax.
Yeah, and we've been talking to quite a few providers of vaults and kind of this idea of tokenized assets into vaults and institutions wanting to kind of get this one size fits all strategy into vaults, that they want a set of smart contract parameters that allows them to get really good yields, better than what they can get in traditional finance, and then they want to do it on chain with trusted vault providers, risk curators, and trusted assets, etc. what's the latest on vaults that you're seeing from your side? Where's the interest at? What are the types of vaults that are interesting? What are you guys focused on? Give us a quick update on the vaults landscape as well. I think this has been pretty promising as of late.
Yeah, certainly there is a lot of institutional capital looking for on-chain vaults as well as yields. We have our own vault product, SFrax USD, that we put into blue chip DeFi products. But I think you're going to continue to see new projects built around taking some sort of off-chain capital system and then bringing it on-chain for yields. I think that stuff is super interesting. It's not something we're as focused on. We're very focused around Frax USD as money and in the payment system and broadening adoption of that, both in DeFi and TradFi. On vaults, we're more just observing that space and like but specifically real world asset vaults is something that we're uniquely positioned to deliver on in terms of having the relationships with like Securitize. So, the announcement that was just made about Biddle on Uniswap, we're actually one of the, registered holders of Biddle. We're actually one of the top holders and we keep our Biddle on chain. And that's backing Frax USD, but we also have the relationships with Wisdom Tree and Superstate. So we actually basically have a reserve backing of Frax USD made up of multiple RWA issuers, which is pretty unique. And so when you think about needing to source liquidity for a Biddle, we actually become a very good candidate for that because we have it on chain in size and we're able to move in between Biddle versus WTGXX or USTB or Frax USD. So there's some interesting use cases there as well.
And and as we see the development of more of these RWA focused vaults, right? You guys have a lot of Biddle. You guys are, able to collateralize Frax USD with the stable coins that are or excuse me, with the tokenized treasury funds that are underneath it. And you maintain Genius compliance that way. As you guys are thinking about your own reserve management strategy, how do you think you will start to access some of these opportunities that are coming up? Like, whether it means kind of getting more yield, passing more of that yield back to end users of Frax USD. Do you see a lot more of these vaults opening up where you can deposit things like Biddle or other, tokenized treasury products? Will that increase the yield that you guys at Frax are generating on your reserves, in turn increasing the yield on Frax USD? Or how should we think about, the way these institutional products are deployed on chain?
Yeah, I think the yield underlying Frax USD is kind of capped at the risk-free rate because we back it with tokenized treasuries. I think where you would look to have enhanced yield opportunities would be on SFrax USD, which is our
Mm.
stake vault version. And because of our relationships with these real-world asset providers, we may have some unique opportunities to access some of these products and for the underlying yield to our as Frax USD holders. But for Frax USD itself, it's really just the risk-free rate. But that's much better than most stablecoins today that aren't passing anything on and they're keeping that revenue for themselves.
And I mean, I think what Rob's trying to get at here more so, Sean, is this idea of RWA looping and why this is so big. So Kyle Samani put out a tweet saying, RWA looping is going to be huge, or that's like the main use case for RWAs. And we've just can keep kind of thinking about this thesis around how these institutional allocators are going to want to come on chain with something like BlackRock's Biddle, and they'll want to put that into an Aave or into a Morpho, borrow against that, buy more Biddle with that, redeposit it, loop it, and hope that there's a arbitrage of rates possible there. Use something like Pendle, use a different lending market. So like this like looping credit creation thesis. We talked to Rune last week about it from Sky. He's pretty firm that he sees this as being like the main value driver for a lot of these institutional flows. I know Mike from Blockworks has been talking about this. He's also pretty convinced that this is going to be the main value driver. So there's quite a bit of confluence in this concept of like looping RWAs as the main value driver for capital allocators outside of the space. Just curious, like, what do you think about that? Like, is there a specific strategy you think that these flows will want to be going into? Is there a right way to think about this looping when it comes to Frax, FRX, USD stablecoins in general? How do you think about like this concept of looping and credit creation as the main kind of additional value add that crypto rails provide to institutional capital allocators now?
Yeah, I think that the reason why they're bringing this capital on chain for looping is because of the transparency of the system, and like the risk is very controlled. As long as you're working with one of these blue chip DeFi protocols, you get like block by block transparency into what you're doing, what the risk is involved. I think the challenge, which some projects are trying to address, is around like T+1 settlement of these real world assets. When you're trying to loop them, you actually like loop, you're adding in that settlement time. And so there are some projects that are doing basically like flash loans, where you can size up on a loop on a real world asset. In order to do that, you need someone who's providing a lot of liquidity of the real world asset. And so that's, again, a place where we can come in both on the supplying of the asset side, but also when inevitably liquidation of these assets happen, you need someone with a large supply of it. So yeah, I agree that it is a massive source of incoming TVL. Traditionally, like we've looped things that are native to DeFi, and we've run out of that supply. And so our ability to tap into institutional capital is like limitless. And as it comes on chain, I think that's why people are so excited.
And what do you think? We obviously we believe in the growth of stable coins. As this industry evolves, upwards of trillions of dollars of stable coins ultimately on chain. What are you seeing as a primary driver of this? Because from my perspective, it's almost got this cold start problem, right? You've got the necessary collateral and reserves that need to be generated in the terms of treasuries. And then once you receive those treasuries, you can mint these, additional stable coins on chain. But first you need to get the treasuries, and you do that, by working with teams that are ultimately going to deploy capital. And so how do you think how do we get Frax more treasuries and therefore more Frax USD on chain?
Yeah, our main sources of growth are the peg keeper strategy on Curve. So pairing with all like DeFi stablecoins, and then growing Frax USD as like a core stablecoin asset in DeFi protocols. But the main thing is getting Frax USD to the point where it's treated as money in the real world. Similar to how we're talking about how traditional finance, you need to bring that institutional capital on chain to really see growth. The same thing is going to apply to DeFi stablecoins or stablecoins that are built in the Genius era for payments. It needs to be accepted as money in large venues and within the payment system. And so a lot of our work is focused on actually crossing that chasm into the real world, and Frax USD serving as a rail for very large payments.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's kind of we had the Liquidity CEO on last week of Stabled Up, and we talked about kind of the actual, like the two types that Sam opened up this entire series with back in episode 1 about kind of genius compliant stable coins and more like yield bearing yield coins, or whether it's like, algorithmically collateralized or ETH backed or whatever it is, something that's not just pure one-to-one backed by treasuries. And as you say, in order to kind of cross that chasm of money as a genius compliant stablecoin, that's really the chasm that you're trying to cross, which is that getting it accepted into as many venues as possible, having it be used for payments. I think that's kind of like the massive competition going on right now between USDT, USDC, FRX, USD, and the likes. It's very much so that kind of race. And what is interesting right now, and I put out a tweet about this today, is, I think that the crypto market structure bill will get passed in Q2. And perhaps that's a bit bold. I think everyone wants it to be passed before midterms, but in Q4 when we get the new Congress. But what people don't quite understand right now, Sean, is that while Genius Act has been signed and put through, it's not exactly implemented yet. And so there's still some kind of waiting period right now for other stablecoin players to kind of enter the playing field because the Genius Act is still kind of in this state. I'm not exactly sure how the US legislative system works, but it kind of goes into a state before it gets implemented. And then the crypto market structure bill is also very notable because the banks and Brian Armstrong from Coinbase and others are fighting big time right now, tooth and nail, about whether or not yield will get passed to stablecoins and whether or not that's going to cause a capital flight from banks. So, lots to unpack here, guys. But I think it's worthwhile spending, you know, the next bit talking about Genius Act, the market structure bill, what yield getting passed back to stablecoins holders looks like, the effects of that. Will capital flight really happen? So Sean, kind of open-ended here, but take it where you like. How do you think about the current state of the regulatory climate in the US?
Yeah, I think it's much friendlier than it used to be. I think Genius Act was a monumental bill that allowed for innovation in stablecoins. I do think there is an ongoing fight around yield for stablecoins. I think it's interesting because there's underlying yield. How do you keep that from being passed on to holders? It's kind of an odd proposition to protect banks, but ultimately, there's ways around it. I think maybe you won't be able to have just like direct, you hold the stable coin and it's basically just like a high yield savings account. But there's so many other ways to incentivize usage of something that's not directly tied to holding something. I think a great example of this was Lighter this past week. They announced that they were getting rev share on their USDC. But what actually they were doing with that was they were incentivizing reduced funding rates for their premium traders on their platform. So this is taking underlying stablecoin yield. It's incentivizing like certain actions on your platform. It's still rerouting that yield back into your ecosystem, but it's doing it in a way you choose. But it's not incentivizing just holding of the stablecoin, and so that would pass what the regulations are around. So I think there's a lot of like clever ways to still end up with the same result where your platform is more sustainable with the underlying yield without addressing those things.
From your experience, just to double click on this, like we had a chat with another stablecoin provider, and he seemed like he wasn't too concerned about this whole narrative around capital flight out of banks. Um, from my perspective, this is probably the most bullish narrative that could have came to stablecoins. Like the fact that we're now like at a point where we're looking at the banking industry and they're the ones saying like stablecoins are posing a real threat. If it wasn't for our regulatory moat, you know, how do you approach this? Generally, I see this as a very bullish thing. Are you, how much of a like kumbaya we want to work with banks, approach should we be taking, and how much should it be like, yeah, we are going to spur capital flight. We are going to take all of these deposits out of banks and put them into, on-chain protocols.
Yeah, I think yeah, we still have a long way to go, but I definitely think it's like a huge victory moment to have them, trying to fight to keep things from happening in the DeFi world because they're concerned about what might happen to their own bottom line. So yeah, I think that's a massive victory. At the same time, banks, I don't believe banks are in trouble in the slightest. Banks have so much power and they offer so much more than just a deposit. So I'm not concerned about that. But if 1% of capital from banks do come into stable coins, then yeah, we're looking at it, a huge growth industry for stable coins. But yeah, I think really where stable coins are going to see outsized growth opportunity is around just like being nimble and providing benefits to existing corporations in ways that a bank is not going to offer for the next like 3 to 5 years, as we see that banks who are posting these stablecoin job offerings are saying you're going to design our stablecoin strategy to launch within the next 3 to 5 years. So they're operating on a different time scale, and banks will be fine. But stablecoins, are going to be much better off. I do agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, we actually talked to a chief marketing officer of a pretty big public company last week, and one of their core initiatives is actually to reduce the narrative of capital flight from banks via stablecoins in an effort to try to get the banks to comply with the crypto market structure bill and with the idea that they should actually collaborate with, like the bank should collaborate with these large stablecoin providers, right? Rather than view them as enemies. So there's this cypherpunk crypto native folk yelling like, we're going to kill the banks. And then meanwhile, the comms leads of the larger stablecoin providers are trying to squash that narrative and actually be friendly to banks. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to build on that because it feels like it's inevitable. Like maybe it takes 3 to 5 years until, these guys ultimately come into the scene, but we're building and picking off chunks of the financial system bit by bit. This morning I was looking into the repo market, right, which is doing like $10 trillion in the US every single day. Um, and we're actually starting to see a lot of that come on chain as well. I was looking at, Broadridge is using this DLR product. They're doing like $250 billion a day. Most of this is happening on Canton Network, which makes it a little bit difficult to really understand like where it's happening or what's happening. But how are you guys approaching some of these facilities around just pure cash and thinking about, okay, how can we help facilitate, some of these big, large capital transfers that happen on a rolling daily basis, given that you guys have the liquidity on both sides of the aisle?
Yeah, we're definitely well positioned to bridge that gap between DeFi and TradFi. I mean, we're not at the level of trillions of treasuries that are happening on Canton, but we are a validator on Canton. We do take bets on ecosystems that we think have a ton of potential, and Canton is definitely one of those. Their like partnership lineup is insane. I mean, they have like every single major bank signing on to be a partner, and they've built from like a customer first standpoint in terms of like talking to these institutions and figuring out what they need. And that's why they're so privacy focused, because that's one of the things that came out of those discussions. They were, working on privacy before privacy became a narrative in crypto. And Another one of those is Layer Zero. They just launched their network. We use Layer Zero as our cross chain provider. So we will definitely be working closely with them on that. And then I think one other one is Tempo. Tempo has so much potential in the stablecoin payment space, and we just released a blog post with them. We're the first stablecoin protocol to build on their TIP20 ERC, or well, their TIP20 token standard, which has like stablecoin gas rewards as well as payment for gas. And so Frax USD is one of the first to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they've assembled the Avengers of crypto, is what we're calling it. Coming back to kind of how you're seeing, things like the repo market, things like banks coming on chain. Is there a path that you guys have seen through your work, in partnerships with Sam's work in DC? Just I'm curious what the progression has been the last 6 months, right? As you've seen the change in demand or change in appetite, right? I think like the driving force behind a lot of these institutional digital assets teams is like they have like this FOMO effect of like wanting to launch a stablecoin because their competitors are, wanting to actually build in the digital asset space because their competitors are, hiring people. Like in your conversations, what is changing materially as of late? Maybe you can just like walk us through a bit of the evolution of your processes, what that's been looking like in your conversations, whether it be policymakers, regulators, institutional flow. What's that actually looking like behind the scenes? Give our audience a grasp of like what that conversation looks like currently.
Definitely. Yeah, I think FOMO is a good way of describing it. I think a lot of these traditional institutions, they were playing a wait and see mode. And some of the early innovators were kind of doing experiments, but not really using anything in production. And now we're getting to the point where these traditional financial institutions are going beyond experiments and like actually integrating these flows into production. And that's when you start to have kind of like this watershed moment when all of these banks are realizing that they're behind the ball already. They're slow moving, and so all of a sudden you see this flood of job postings for stablecoin development programs within these banks. And similar in our conversations with companies who are looking to adopt stablecoins. In the past, we would have these meetings, and they would say, "Yeah, stablecoins is something that we like have on our radar, but we like don't think it's super pressing. But of course, we're going to take this meeting because we want to like learn more." But now you take the meeting, and it's like, how do we get this in production in our flow today? Because people now understand that there are clear benefits as these products have come to market. And so they want to have those benefits for their bottom line as well. And so our conversations is much more around implementation. And then, thanks to the state of AI coding, like it's way faster to get to a usable product that's integrated into someone's existing flow than it was in the past. We've already built all of the smart contract infrastructure and the stable coin itself, and it has TVL and it has a 5-year track record of security. And so that's kind of what gets us the role. And then our ability to move very quickly uh, is what brings it to market.
Yeah. Yeah. So with the acceleration of these engineering timelines, like what are you guys seeing as the primary limiting factor? Where's the bottleneck to growing this thing 10, 20x?
Yeah, I mean, the bottleneck at the end of the day is, convincing the institutions that we are the best solution. And so we have institutions in our pipeline who have been sold, and these things are coming to market. And then I think once you have like a really big partnership announcement, and then you can kind of lean on that to close a ton more deals. So ATW was really the first one from an institutional standpoint to have a investment bank, New York City investment bank, put 50 million to Frax USD. That sends a signal to all institutions that they did deep due diligence on our setup of Frax USD, and how everything functions, and they signed off on that, and they're comfortable holding tens of millions of dollars in Frax USD. So that's step one. But as we go to release more of these partnerships throughout the year, um, that is going to close a lot more deals as well.
Yeah. It's a flywheel effect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the Clooney effect. When they were making Ocean's 11, they told Brad Pitt that Clooney was in, and then they told Clooney that Pitt was in, and then they were both in. Sean, as we come to a close here, what is the kind of roadmap here for Frax coming into Q2, into Q3? Right, when you look at the landscape of Genius compliant stablecoins, there's quite a bit of competition, especially coming on, as I was mentioning, as the Genius Act kind of gets implemented and the green light goes on for more and more banks, financial institutions, and others to collaborate in this landscape. You guys have a FraxNet product that is kind of built for that expansion, but also this FRX USD product being your main Genius compliant stablecoin, sitting pretty in the 9-figure market cap range. Where are we looking from Q1, Q2 into Q3? What has to materially grow and change for FRX USD to become a larger, more competitive Genius compliant stablecoin?
Yeah, definitely. So on the DeFi side, we have our PegKeeper strategy and then DeFi protocols. So Aave is going to be a huge one when that comes online. But we also just last week announced that Frax USD is integrated on EtherFi. So now everybody who has an EtherFi card can load up Frax USD, spend it, and get the risk-free rate, which is better than holding USDC on its own and not getting the yield. Yeah, we're going to continue to integrate into more of these neobanks, as Frax USD is basically just base infrastructure there. We're also working on making Frax USD more accessible for retail. Fraxnet is more like of an institutional dashboard, so we have a mobile app we're working on, very basic, just focused on like the easiest, fastest way to get someone onboarded to a stablecoin without bombarding them with meme token trading and all that stuff. It's just very stablecoin and payments focused. And then a lot of growth will come from our institutional partnership side as well, as Frax USD becomes more integrated into everyday payments. So yeah, that's the main focus, is that we're growing. We've built the infrastructure side, and then partnerships is going to grow.
Awesome. Sean, thanks so much, man. It's a pleasure to have you on. And yeah, you guys are doing great work in stablecoins, one of the primary sectors of our neo finance thesis. And there's tons getting built out around what you guys are doing, as well as stablecoins as a whole. So thanks for coming on, man. It was a pleasure. And shout out to Frax for sponsoring Stabled Up. We really appreciate you guys. And yeah, you guys are, I think, helping the space out as a whole by investing in the educational resource that we have here at this show. So
And see
really
you in New
appreciate
York,
it.
man. See you in the Big Apple very soon, Sean.
Sounds good.
All righty, buddy.
Cool,
Speak
man.
to you
I'll
soon,
see you
man.
next time.
Take
Cheers.
care.
Alrighty, guys, that wraps up episode number 21 of Stabled Up. Sean Kelley, the VP of Partnerships and Comms at Frax. We covered vaults. We covered what FRX USD is doing to grow with the Genius compliant stablecoin market, regulatory landscape, tokenized RWA looping, and more. Guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, back with some news coverage. Then we're going to have Tristan from Bullet come up and talk about his mainnet launch, as well as Gmoney to get an insight into what he's doing in the AI world. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just 30 seconds.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Talk to AI like your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist. Yours, private, and here today. Visit near.ai to have a fully private chat experience.
Hibachi is fast and private perps trading, secured by ZK with Celestia underneath. Go to hibachi.xyz to start trading today.
Looking for yield that stands out? Infinify gives you just that. Deposit stablecoins and earn far more than the current savings rate. Infinify is a battle-tested, reliable DeFi platform that is ready to go. Head to infinify.xyz. Open, stable, borderless. Frax is building the next generation of stablecoin infrastructure for the digital finance era. Visit frax.com to learn more today.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Talk to AI like your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist. Yours, private, and here today. Visit near.ai to have a fully private chat experience. Alrighty, guys, back to some news. Macroscope. In the decade that I'm posting here, I've never done a product review, which is crazy. This guy's more known for his macro takes, his trading takes. But he tried
followed
out,
him for a long time.
yeah, he tried out Coinbase's Borrow product. This lets customer borrow cash using Bitcoin as a collateral. I didn't have a need for this. I think it's a great product. You get tax-free long-term Bitcoin if you can hold it long-term, borrow against it to pay for your expenses, to pay for to buy more tokens, to take that USDC, withdraw it, etc. But I wanted to see how easy they've made it. I was amazed. The entire process was simple and took just a few minutes. You deposit Bitcoin as collateral and get USDC, which is immediately convertible to USD, then a quick transfer to your linked bank account. It's seamless and you never leave the platform. The variable APR 30-day average is currently 4.8%, which is what you pay to borrow the money. This is powered by Morpho,
Nice.
part of that neo finance thesis. Basically, in this macroscope, if you scroll down, he kind of highlights how the centralized exchange UX now rivals or surpasses DeFi simplicity for non-technical users. Of course, DeFi's borrowing has been around for a long time, but his sense is that many people in the space don't realize how easy the process has become for the casual non-tech user, or how competitive the APRs are. Certainly makes BTC even more useful and attractive asset to own. I agree with that. This makes BTC a productive collateral, not just a store of value. It's actually quite appealing from my perspective as to like when I start to reallocate into Bitcoin. I like the biggest problem is the tax stuff. You want to be in as tax advantageous as possible, and this borrowing strategy is something that a lot of wealthy people do over time, right? They borrow against their assets, so they don't have to pay tax on the sale. Rather, they can just borrow against it, use that capital responsibly to pay for whatever asset or whatever purchases that they want to make, other assets, or real life spending. So his main takeaway was disruption.
Yeah, so obviously this works for assets that you want to hold a long time. Bitcoin is one of those. Now, I think DeFi has been very complicated for a long time. Like the user experience has not been there. And so now DeFi is reaching a point of maturity where it is less risky than it used to be. It is passing security audits, these things are resilient now. Aave Morpho, has grown to a point where it can withstand capital at institutional scale. Now, I think this again is part of the neo finance thesis in the case that you have centralized exchanges as the front end to DeFi backends.
Yep.
And so what wouldn't be in the neo finance thesis is Coinbase having a product where they would be their own lenders. But what you have here is just a front end for DeFi. DeFi has had a UX problem for a long time. Coinbase is solving that by giving people an easier access, forgot password button, very easy tradition, like normal online banking, fintech, smooth and simplicity style front end for DeFi in the back end. I imagine that Aave, like we heard Stani talk about, they want to go into a mobile app. They want to provide all of the same functionality that banks do provide, but again, do it in such a way that they're tapping into DeFi in the back end. This is something that I think will continue to proliferate. And this is how we put DeFi smart contracts into the hands of millions and billions of people.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is again, if it was just Coinbase using Coinbase's product, it would just be a centralized exchange product, kind of that CE DeFi landscape. They'd be controlling where your assets go. All this, I mean, it is still has that custodial nature to it, but because we're using Morpho underneath, it provides it basically gives Coinbase a new product offering that they wouldn't have been able to offer unless they built out an entire lending desk themselves, had providers of it, had to build out the customer support of it, had to build out all the interest rate modeling. In this case, they're able to just use Morpho, and they're really easily able to provide a service that makes Bitcoin a pet rock into a productive asset you can borrow against. The APY or the APR is definitely, it's definitely pretty high. 4.8% is reasonably high to borrow against. If you think about it, if you have $1 million of Bitcoin, you borrow 25% of that, that's 250,000. Over a year, you're paying upwards of 10 grand just to borrow that $250,000. So you're definitely paying a solid rate. In the bear market, probably hurts. The bull market probably doesn't really feel like anything but a little nick, especially if you can hold your Bitcoin long term.
So for reference, the Aave rate, just have it open on USDC, is 3.82%. So exactly 1% less. And I'll go ahead and check Morpho as well, because I'm curious if that's that 30-day average of 4.82 is just straight pass through on Morpho's rate, or if Coinbase charges some fees.
I'm not sure.
Coinbase takes a little bit of cut.
Yeah, I'm sure that they do, at least on the borrower rate, or at least on something on the deposit, or I mean, that's kind of like the whole value prop of this service. And so you would think that they're going to be making money off the service providing, right? Like off the service that they're providing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I see
what is the rate on Morpho?
I'm looking. They have different. You actually get a different rate depending on different collateral.
Yeah.
But it's about 3.5%. Like if you loan wrapped Bitcoin, borrow USDC, it's 3.55%. You loan some staked ETH, wrapped stake ETH, borrow USDC, it's 3.55%.
Yeah. So
yeah,
Coinbase is definitely making some money on the top of that then.
Yeah. So they're charging, looks like about an extra point.
Yeah. All right, guys, let's move on from this. Great tweet, Macroscope. Thought it was pretty relevant as well to the kind of neo-finance thesis. More on Morpho. Asset manager Apollo, which manages $900 billion, enters an agreement to purchase up to 90 million Morpho tokens over a 4-year period. We'll work together for on-chain lending. Basically, 90 million Morpho is around $130 million or so. Over 4 years. So you kind of get this institutional TWAP. Thesis here is that these institutions are going to, it sounds like Apollo is going to start using Morpho to actually do some of the RWA looping strategies that we had talked about, that Kyle Samani is bullish on, that Mike from Blockworks is bullish on. And
that we are bullish on. I mean, look, I truly do think that this is what unlocks a lot of the latent capital that you have. You end up turning assets into productive assets. You turn collateral into programmable collateral, and you end up extending the credit supply on chain by an order of magnitude. I think this is like the next phase of what's happening here. You see why BlackRock, Larry Fink is so excited about tokenization. It's not because you just have these things and he cuts, 1.5 points off of his accounting expenses. There's all kinds of products that can be unlocked as a result of this thing.
Yeah, I mean, 90 million Morpho purchase is also not a small amount. Morpho is part of the N7 index, which I'm actually looking at right now. I just ran the query on it earlier this morning to get updated charts based on the weekend. And yeah, I mean, Morpho's leading the Neo Finance tokens returns since January 1st, 27% return since January 1st for Morpho. Pretty incredible number there. Hype behind it with a 20% return. Sky at 14% return, and Aave at -13, Centrifuge -18, and then it kind of drops off from there. And so if you guys look at our N7 index, which is dune.com/CHISPY/the rollup-neofi, the N7 index has a categorical return of -6.72% this year. Bitcoin's at -22%, DeFi Core -30%, L1s and L2s around -35%. And so Morpho is actually now, after this announcement, is leading the is backpacking the N7 index. And so I think this chart looks great. This news is great. And it's awesome to see that they were able to pull this off.
And obviously, we believe that the N7 index is going to backpack crypto on the upswing once tides turn, and we transition into a broader bull market once again. We believe that this is ultimately going to be a secular bull market. You're going to see a lot of adoption happen in some core areas. We believe this neo-finance thesis, where you do have institutional yield farming through some choice DeFi applications, that's where a lot of activity is primed to happen. And it's actually happening sooner. I'm curious to hear what you think. I think it's happening sooner than I would have expected.
Yes.
Like the progression from, okay, first you bring the assets on chain through tokenization, then you incorporate them into DeFi mechanisms, collateralization, lending
Yes.
kind of thing. I would have think, and I read a great article. I read a great article the other day about how the lending markets right now are not structured according to what institutions are going to want. Uh,
Mm.
there's going to need to be more syndication as a result of these things because you have super states, credit market, you have Biddle. There's not only just accredited investor, access controls, there's also redemptions and liquidity controls. These assets do not follow just a single ERC20 standard, which
Mm.
is why lending markets they make it so easy. Everything follows the same token standards, not the way RWAs work. And so lending markets are going to need to be rebuilt. I would have thought we wouldn't have seen the deep integration between institution asset classes
Mm.
and DeFi. I would have thought it would have taken a lot more time to do those integrations and build out some more configurations of how these things should look. It's happening
Mm.
a lot faster than I would have thought, and the actual the actual um, allocation into these assets did not think was going to happen so quick,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
that was the part
Like,
of this announcement that was kind of shocking. Is like, just a heads up, anyone who owns Morpho, you're going to be getting an institutional grade TWAP for the next 4 years. Congratulations! Like, here you go. Pretty
tokenization
insane.
is still early. So to see the adoption and the integration into DeFi progress so quickly was surprising. And then obviously I felt like the last pillar of this was going to be ultimately allocating into these, governance tokens, network tokens,
Like,
but
you
it's
would have
happening
thought
all in one fell swoop.
you would have thought like they would use the application on chain with their products first. But now, I mean, they're kind of saying like, look, we're going to be buying these things and we're going to be using them. And our thesis seems to be whatever products we're using is the products that we're going to be buying, and the tokens that we're going to be buying. And it just seems like it's clear that, yeah, I mean, the products that we're using are what we're going to be buying. So I think that about wraps up the headlines for today and the news on today's amazing President's Day special show. We do have a rumor mill coming up. That's going to be interesting. We've
Yeah.
had quite a bit of rumors come through. I actually just got some new rumor mill information coming through the pipe this week about something to do with EtherFi this week. Not exactly sure what it is quite yet, but hearing things there. So if you guys are watching this, EtherFi is part of the N7 index. And you do know that there's something happening there. So why don't we bounce off of the screen here and get ready for our rumor mill coming up, which is a bit more of a broad stroke rumor mill. It's a bit more of a
It's a bit more vague. It's a bit ambiguous today.
yeah, it's a bit more vague. It's a bit more ambiguous. It's not exactly directly tied to anything to do with the kind of crypto asset market. Like, I'm not sure there's going to be straight alpha on what to buy, what to invest in as a result of this. I know we've had some pretty good runs this past week as to what's coming out, who's announcing what. We got looped in on layer 0 early, looped in on some of the Aave stuff early, we did not get looped in on the Morpho stuff early, but I did see it the moment it came out. So yeah, let's get into the rumor mill segment of the day here and roll into it, because I think it's going to be interesting what we have. So without further ado, guys, here comes rumor mill. Rumor mill:
Okay.
Citadel and JP Morgan threatened to sue the SEC for what is about to happen. Is this going to happen? Is the rumor mill going to occur? Is Citadel and JP Morgan threatening to actually sue the SEC for what's happening? Apparently, there is news coming from the SEC newsroom that there is a new operation happening, that SEC is doing something that is very beneficial for the crypto ecosystem. And if you look at the news, as of late, top Wall Street firms actually met with the SEC Crypto Task Force on Tuesday, February, or I believe it was later in January, and they had potential concerns with the agency's crypto agenda. A top securities trade group, SIFMA, warned that exemptions for tokenized securities in DeFi could destabilize markets. And so Paul Atkins got more involved. And apparently, there are updates that are coming that will seem imminent. It is probably the biggest thing that they could conceivably announce, is what our sources are telling us. And our sources are telling us that they are suspecting that they wait for Clarity Act negotiations to play out before they make this announcement. Rumor is something big is brewing, and you guys should be keeping an eye out on the SEC newsroom.
Yeah. Look, I mean, we're seeing things happen on both the SEC side as well as the CFTC side after the Innovation Academy or the Innovation Council was released last week with some big names there. The SEC and the CFTC are working closely together. And yeah, you alluded to the things that we're seeing, the exemptions that could come about for cash flowing tokens. If ultimately what we find here is that there is a regulatory carve out for these tokens, my understanding is that it opens up these businesses to positions and allocations from institutions at the greatest scale, the largest scale.
If I had to guess, I think that this is what this is. I think this is a new asset class potentially forming for non-security tokens, but I think it actually may even be bigger than that. I think it's something bigger. It's something that is going to have ramifications that would obviously upset Citadel and JP Morgan.
Right. And so you got to think like what could possibly upset them to the point where they would feel the need to sue the SEC.
Yeah. And that, guys, is what we're going to find out for you. We're going to keep finding out. We're going to keep digging. We had some good sources on this one. We're not exactly sure what it is, but it's apparently coming out and is going to be one of the bigger announcements from the SEC. And yeah, apparently the task force is really making its runs and trying to make this something that is very, very net positive for the digital asset space.
Yep. So the SEC's got a crypto task force. Obviously, the SEC is currently very pro crypto. Yeah, we're gonna be looking more into this as more people are starting to think about what the SEC could be discussing internally. But yeah, I mean, this is quite the pivot, quite the bullish reversal from the Gary Gensler, the Gary Gensler regime at the SEC.
All right, guys, that's it for Rumor Mill today. We're going to be back in just a sec. Quick commercial break. We've got Tristan, the founder of Bullet, who's going to be talking about their mainnet launch, their perp stacks on Solana. And then we've got Gmoney talking about all of his recent AI agent operations and what he's been doing in the space. So, guys, don't go anywhere. If you're watching on YouTube, we have chat on Twitter and YouTube. Hit subscribe, hit like. Appreciate you guys being here, and we'll be right back.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Talk to AI like your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist. Yours, private, and here today. Visit near.ai to have a fully private chat experience.
Hibachi is fast and private perps trading, secured by ZK with Celestia underneath. Go to hibachi.xyz to start trading today. We are back with Tristan from Bullet, friend of the show, and it's exciting times. You guys launched today. We're recording this a little bit ahead of time, so today's the day. I mean, you guys have been building for a long time. You've, been through a lot of the blockchain infrastructure evolutions, and the most recent downturn in the market conditions. Just give us a sense of what the feeling has been like as you gear up for launch in the midst of these market conditions. Give a sense of like how you've been feeling over the last few days and weeks.
Yeah, it's been interesting and very polarizing, I guess. The kind of pent up excitement, having been building Bullet specifically for the last year and a half, feels like a lot of things coming to fruition. And looking at all the metrics and seeing things kind of run, and seeing the uptime quite high and starting to onboard people onto the platform, I think is really exciting. Like all this work that I've put in, and I've been working till like 1, 2 a.m. every night trying to get this thing over the line. So that feels great. I mean, the market, unfortunately, the sentiment is not great. CT is just, feeling like a bit of a war zone right now. And we were talking about this just before the show obviously started. But yeah, like the vibes are a little bit abysmal. But, I believe and you believe that this is kind of maybe a little bit of a overblown like leg down essentially, and so I am kind of hopeful with what we've built. Some people out there obviously don't believe that there's been a lot of very like interesting developments in crypto, but I would kind of refute that thesis somewhat, especially with the stuff that I've been building, and that's why I'm in the space, because I am genuinely like interested in and passionate about building high performance blockchains and kind of the financial infra that I think will power the next decade or two at least. So yeah, I think a lot of things coming together. It's an interesting nexus. The markets are kind of all over the place, but I'm pretty optimistic.
Very cool. I find it exciting as well. I think a lot of people that watch as well, are excited about building the next iteration of the financial infrastructure here. We've obviously seen the rise of perps exchanges, and we've seen how decentralized exchanges like Hyperliquid are becoming more liquid than some of the centralized alternatives. They've got a more liquid book on Bitcoin than Binance as of a few days ago. So, give us a sense of the Bullet thesis. You guys are built on Solana. You're using the Sovereign SDK. Give us a sense of why it was necessary from your perspective to build Bullet, another exchange in this environment.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, we've been building exchange stuff for like roughly the last 4 years. We started with options trading essentially, but found that quite hard in terms of getting the adequate liquidity, and honestly, just like the retail interest, I think for options on chain hasn't really picked up to the degree we wanted. Perps is a completely different story. Perps is this very crypto native instrument. It's a great way to essentially like trade the markets both on their way up and down, as we are in now. Which is another reason why I'm quite bullish on the perp sector. Like, something NFT really survive in the WAGMI years of crypto where everything is up only. But I think trading infrastructure is fairly ambivalent to the directionality of the market and will continue to be around. And people at the end of the day have these tokens, they need to be able to trade them. Dexes will basically always be a thing that sticks around, in my opinion. With our kind of platform in the past, we definitely ran into some limitations and some hurdles in terms of performance. And I think that has been a limiting factor for a lot of these exchanges in the past. Dexes all the way from 2020 with Uniswap were a great 0 to 1 innovation, but the gas fees, the speed of being able to do these trades, the kind of sophistication of the trading strategies you could do, the liquidity profiles and the market making that you could do there was very like limited essentially in terms of these two-sided pools and having these automated market makers price off one curve. And now we're getting things that are a lot more expressive, like central limit order books are coming on chain. We love to talk about clubs on blobs essentially. Is one of these things that's going to enable people to trade on chain and have better price discovery. And this has really been like a blockchain throughput problem. Like if you wanted to build a central limit order book on Ethereum, I mean, no one's been able to do it for the obvious like limitations of the throughput of the chain. Solana was a big step up in terms of being able to get to thousands of transactions per second, lower block times. And now I think you're seeing this kind of third generation of blockchains come out. And I think the notable exception there is like there is a big focus on performance of these blockchains, not only transactions per second, but also the kind of transaction execution speed, certain other like application specific sequencing rules that I think are quite important. And I think along with that, things are becoming more specific, right? I think this was a kind of thesis that maybe like Cosmos and others had, some rollups going more app specific as well. And I think you're seeing more of this specialization. Like it's great that we have these general purpose chains and I use them all the time and they're very useful for like the 90% of the applications. But I would put perps squarely in that bucket that we really care about performance. It really matters because you're trading at quite high frequencies. These kind of liquidations are happening. You need to have the throughput to be able to put them through in like a timely manner. Essentially, if your blockchain is getting congested, you can't land Oracle updates, you can't execute all these kind of trades. This creates a big systemic risk for the platform. We've even seen it, with Lighter and Hyperliquid having some downtime or some kind of small issues, or people trying to run these like exploits or games. Like these things are always going to get people are always going to try and break these things. They're always going to be under very high load, very high pressure, and I think it's kind of helping over the years. We have these stress tests, such as 1010, that essentially try and make things more robust. And I'm personally very bullish about DeFi products because they are code, they are software, they do things as you kind of program them essentially. This is in very stark contrast to centralized lenders that we had in 2022 that blew up because they weren't able to deal with risk or kind of offload positions. And I think that's the beauty of DeFi. We kind of codify these rules, we iterate them over time, we build something that is basically bulletproof and unbreakable. And that's why I'm bullish on what we're building.
Got it. And so, pointing back to 1010, people realize like, we thought the infrastructure was a lot better. Turns out we still got a lot of work to do. Things weren't quite as seamless as we thought. And if you look at the flip side at Celestia, they just announced another increase in the size of blocks. People are giving them some flack because things aren't filling up the blocks now to this to where they are at capacity. So give us a sense of with some of the changes that you guys are doing, was it like 1010 wouldn't have happened? We would have had proper liquidations. We would have, been able to essentially on this central limit order book in a more seamless and robust fashion. What are some of the changes that you think are before and after the bulletproof moment here?
Yeah, that's a really good question and a hard one to kind of dive into. But I think actually like a lot of probably lies squarely with the centralized exchanges. It was a bug in the Binance pricing mechanism, essentially how they did their kind of Oracle or like index pricing. And so I think that obviously had like big ramifications and showed that we are kind of very dependent on like a central actor, I think, and a bit of like a monopoly here in the exchange space. So I think that's like maybe one of Binance's oversights. They are the giant and they were referencing their own order books, and those order books basically went a spiral, obviously forced this auto deleverage on a ton of players on their platform as well. And that kind of left people like legged with these big positions that they potentially lost on. So things that I think came up is obviously more diversity in terms of the exchanges that are out there, more, I think, dependence and weight on DeFi as well. And then I think the last bit, which was talked about a lot, is some of these margin systems and improving how they work. One big thing that a lot of people didn't know about was how auto deleverage works. And it's not a beautiful system. There are definitely some flaws with it, and kind of people have been thinking through new solutions to that. So I think it's brought a lot of these questions to the forefront. These things that we took for granted, I think, that were invented by BitMEX very many years ago. I think people are kind of going back to the drawing board and thinking about how can we build more secure, more robust systems, because there's no doubt that these kind of flash crashes are probably going to happen again, and who knows, in even larger magnitude.
And so what I'm curious about is what users are going to see in terms of a difference, before, if they were just using one of the perps exchanges that are out there now, be it Hyperliquid or Lighter or one of the centralized alternatives, or even just the trading experience on Solana. Now with Bulletproof or with Bullet, given that you guys are using a lot of the Solana infrastructure, but also leveraging Celestia underneath the hood for some increased throughput, what should the end user experience be like? What should they see when they're trading?
Yeah, fantastic question. Meant to answer that before actually, but yeah, what we saw with our old platform when we were actually doing a lot of the execution on the Solana layer 1 itself was it was very hard to execute things in a timely manner, like we saw, and something that actually caught me off guard on 1010. We saw in some assumptions essentially that people's portfolio or certain accounts can't go underwater within 10 seconds or something like that, or there would be these massive drawdowns essentially to mark people liquidatable. And it turns out, trigger orders, take profit and loss orders, and the stop losses will get hit on the way down. And so that's a big part of what we engineered into Bullet. One, we have very fast execution, able to execute trades within basically 500 milliseconds. We're able to process like several thousand trades a second as well, which I think under persistent load for these big market spikes, we might see thousands, if not tens of thousands of transactions happening a second. So that's kind of our watermark in terms of where we need to get to in terms of performance. And then, yeah, with Zeta, our previous platform, when we had big market wicks, we had to contend with tons of arbitrage bots, liquidations, thinking RPC connections to the max to get their transactions through. And as an exchange, you really need dedicated throughput. You really need to be able to get through the high value transactions, such as the Oracle updates, such as the liquidations. And so I can sleep a lot more safely at night, I think, knowing that this kind of stuff is going to get very processed very quickly. And we've run some tests, some benchmarks, and we can hammer this thing with like thousands of transactions and kind of see it execute very, very quickly and sharply there. So I think, yeah, those kind of engineering advancements are quite paramount to building a good exchange on chain.
Yeah, I mean, we know reliability, liquidity, these are the things that traders are going to rely on. And oftentimes they're going to the most trustworthy exchange, the one that's not going to sell their order flow, and ultimately is going to have the most uptime and maintain the liquidity. Congrats, you guys are now live. It's obviously a long road to get here where you guys are today. Give us a sense of what comes up next.
Right now, Mainnet is basically live. We are doing good rollout, essentially is the safest way to get it out there, to scale up the systems. And also, I think, to make it a bit more exciting for the early people to get in, people who've been supporting the project for the last couple of years, people that we know that are very solid traders and friends of the project, bringing them in and next couple of weeks, essentially, is we're rolling out to our first few hundred users and hopefully first few thousand if everything goes well. So getting people a taste of the platform, they're going to see the speed there, how easy it is to kind of connect up and start trading. We're going to go live. We're going to have our APIs pretty much launching, hopefully within the next week or so. We've put a lot of effort into this, making this really professional grade, essentially, for people to come in and do algorithmic trading, which is where we're going to get a bunch of liquidity and kind of trading volume through. We've had a big focus on that. And then, yeah, continue to kind of scale up more assets. The beautiful thing is we've had a bit of time to stress test it and kind of work through that. So I think that's very exciting to get deposits into the platform and get people essentially being able to trade all the different markets under the one portfolio margin system. There's a lot of new exciting stuff that can come out through there as well. There's a bit of an alpha leak, but I've been talking with some of our engineers and how we can enable stuff like prediction markets within that margin framework as well. So I think that's very cool. A lot of these different financial products and kind of related products are going to come together. We're also very bullish on this narrative of equity trading as well. So being able to get listings, I think, will be really important and something that's obviously been kind of ripping in tradition. So it breaks us out of that 4-year cycle of crypto. We can use this blockchain. I'm excited for it's like a continual rollout. We got a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. The performance continues to get better as we kind of crack on with the engineering problems. The scalability gets better as well. As we continue to build things out and work with great teams like Celestia, who are kind of continuing to hit their milestones on their roadmap as well. And yeah, I think the main kind of call to action there is if people want to get whitelisted to the platform, you can either join or you can visit the website at app.bullet.xyz and you can go. There should be a kind of request access form, but you can also DM me or people on the team, and we'll be giving out like a limited amount of invite codes. So getting people early into the platform so they can kind of get exposure to some of the points and being early users of the platform and supporters and helping us grow and giving us good feedback and helping us build hopefully the best product on the market.
An incredible journey so far, and best of luck as you guys continue.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Robbie. Really appreciate it as always.
Absolutely. Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
All right. Well, I missed the Bullet conversation, Rob. How'd it go?
It was good. Yeah, we did that. We did that interview a little while ago. We recorded it before the mainnet came out, aired it today. Bullet mainnet is out. Look, I think Bullet's got a bit of a technical edge because they're using Celestia. They are the crux of clobs on blobs. I think Hyperliquid, because they have a little bit more of a centralized model, is able to compete on the same levels of throughput. But according to what Tristan's saying, Bullet is going to outpace that throughput significantly and maintain a lot of decentralized architecture. So it was pretty cool to hear. On a separate, if we're just talking about the perps ecosystem at large, I think there's a lot of room for perps platforms to start to specialize. Like, we talked about, I think we'll get them on the show soon, but Varun from Hibachi is going into this direction as well. They're hyper focusing on FX. I think that's a great move to specialize. And then I think, we're going to see a lot more like RWA focused perps platforms as well, because look, perps is just a modality that applies to all of these things. To get a general purpose perps platform to win some market share, I think is largely a game that's already been won, but doesn't mean that perps is done. I think perps has a lot more room to go. We're going to see a lot more niche product offerings in the perp space.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think if you're just launching a basic perps text, you're kind of just.
It's certainly an uphill battle to gain any kind of market share from Hyperliquid or Lighter, any of these guys.
Yeah,
variational.
Definitely is. All right, guys. Sparkline became the second largest money market DeFi by TVL in just 252 days. As it stands, Sparkline differentiates itself as a permissionless institutional grade blue chip money market protocol.
Yeah.
Spark defines blue chip assets via three main criteria: high market cap and liquidity, low volatility, and proven resilience. So if you scroll down, you can kind of see some of the chart activity here as Spark rises through the ranks with the help of Grove, with the help of some of the other Sky stars. So if you look here, total value locked by lending protocol outside of Aave, you've got Morpho at 10 billion. You've got Spark at 7.39 billion, Fluid, Maple, Camino, Compound, and others. But you can see that Sparklen launched in that May 9th, 2023. And you can see that Sparklen becomes the second largest money market protocol by TVL in January, and then really goes on to keep that for a while. It's funny how they do these headlines. 252 days, but it was like 2 years ago, and then it kept that. It's kept that position since. Yeah.
If you see there was a couple points 2024 where Spark almost overtook Morpho. Now Morpho has widened its lead over Spark.
Yeah.
Probably the Coinbase integration is helping them maintain that. But I think Spark is doing great. It was a pleasure to have Rune on the other day talking about how this mechanism works.
Yeah.
Spark obviously is one of the main stars in the Sky ecosystem. And so they're able to provide some upside in terms of the return of the base savings rate to SUSD. And so they're able to capture all of that upside, which I think is a great mechanism for fueling their growth. And Sky is just continuing to plug along, getting more and more allocations from asset managers. And Spark is going to be a beneficiary of that. So look, I think just to close that point, I think these lending protocols are starting to go B2B to C, which I think is going to be a positive move in this space. Before, like Morpho, you had to go directly to the Morpho website, deposit using your own browser wallet. Now Morpho is working with the likes of Coinbase. You're seeing this in prediction markets as well. You got Kalshi working with Robinhood. Coinbase is starting to use prediction markets. And so I just think, then part of the neo finance thesis is that we're going to have traditional legacy businesses start to incorporate DeFi lending markets in the back end and become distribution channels for this technology.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, USDS is crushing over $10 billion or just at that $10 billion market cap. Rune came on and was talking about how they expect to get that to be 20 billion this year, and also a doubling in annual revenue would be pretty impressive if they can pull that off. So, all right, guys, we got Gmoney in 9 minutes. We got our final news headline of the day, and it is the stablecoin standoff. Crypto and banks remain deadlocked ahead of the White House deadline. So this is from our friends over at Crypto in America, Eleanor Tourette and Crypto in America. There's another potential White House meeting this week where we'll see where things stand on the stablecoin yield argument. Something to add here, guys, is we actually got the Digital Chamber of Commerce's report over the weekend about the latest on stablecoin yield. And in that report, there was a couple of key takeaways that I gathered that I would like to share with you guys from that report specifically. So basically, the Digital Chamber wrote a stable coin reward principles letter. The principles are aimed at balancing stablecoin regulation with market innovation, specifically addressing the yield and interest prohibition, which was proposed in the recent Senate Banking Committee discussions. This is also what got Brian Armstrong fired up, amongst other aspects of the ongoing market structure bill debates. It's also the main point that the banks are using to argue that capital flight will result from yield being enabled to be passed through to holders of stablecoins. The Digital Chamber is proposing to do a deposit impact study 2 years after the legislation passes to review really how stablecoin activity affects traditional bank deposits. They believe, as do I, as did Sean from Frax earlier on the show, that this study will show that stablecoins complement rather than disrupt the banking system. At least in the immediate short term, the ramifications of this in the mid to longer term, I'm not exactly sure what the ramifications will be. At the end, they go on to say that they support community banking and local lending, suggesting that crypto rails paired with traditional banking infrastructure will ultimately benefit American consumers. I think this bill will get passed. Stablecoin yield will be passed on to holders. However, I feel there's a massive education gap that needs to be filled with banks first, which could take quite a while. Many of us want this to be done before midterms. That's the line in the sand. I'm predicting it'll be done in Q2, to be continued.
It's a good summary. I don't have a lot to add. I'm loving the reports from the Digital Chamber, and I am looking forward to the DC Blockchain Conference in March, where we will be talking directly with lawmakers, regulators, policymakers in DC. I think we're going to have to put on the suit for that one. Andy, what do you think?
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I just think that this whole kind of like stablecoin yield argument is pretty crazy. That's the one thing that is stopping this from getting through. There's so much other market structure things happening and phenomenon happening, but the stablecoin market structure is the most important for the banks, for the crypto industry as a whole. Yeah, I find it to be a bit. I'm a little bit surprised as to how much pushback there is on this. Just given that the stablecoins aren't even that big, and banks are so much bigger. But
like I said earlier during Stabled Up, I think the fact that banks are saying there's a potential of $6 trillion capital flight to move out of banks if they were to go through, I think that is an extremely bullish headline for stablecoins. And if I'm a stablecoins, marketing comms lead, I'm leaning into that. I'm saying, yeah, it's time. For so long, it was like, revolutionary, but stablecoins were kind of always playing this like bank kumbaya. Man.
Yeah, banks don't want a study done. They want to ban. Yeah, I agree. Paul Barron Network. I totally agree. Yeah, if we scroll down here some more, we can see a response from the Senate Banking Committee to the Digital Chamber about their principles. And yeah, I mean, if you see here, basically, these principles push to persevere or to preserve stablecoins as payment instruments, protect DeFi liquidity and dollar dominance, and establish a rigorous data-driven framework for assessing deposit impact, the group said. So seems like there's a group that's on board with the stablecoin bill here with getting this through, but the banks have not formally weighed in on the Digital Chamber of Commerce's principles. But it sounds like it's constructive. It sounds like some of the proposals may be too broad to win banks' support. So, yeah, I mean, look, nobody's working today. It's President's Day. It's a holiday, except for the Rollup. And yeah, I mean, it's unclear whether a deal can be reached by the end of the month. Like I said, I would be optimistic for Q2 is my take.
We shall see. Guys, we've got Gmoney coming up in just a few moments. Before we start talking about quite a bit more politics on the show, we're going to bring him up very, very soon.
Did you have any coffee today, man?
No, I haven't had coffee in like a month and a half. What is that, a Celsius?
I just killed a whole Celsius. I'm firing.
What's on your mind?
The CFTC is tapping crypto bigwigs for advisory committee. Mike C. So if you scroll down a bit, this is what we talked about with the innovation committee here. Last week, we saw our friend Vance from the show got on this, as well as CEOs from Coinbase, Ripple, Uniswap, even Polymarket and Kalshi. Former acting chair Caroline Pham, who now joined MoonPay, was actually a part of the initial wave. Again, we got some pushback from this on Twitter. People were like, I remember CMS was like, great group, very, very solidly selected, as if it was like kind of a meme that, that this group got kind of created in this random way. And yeah, I mean, look, they're trying to bring together participants from every corner of the marketplace. The Innovation Acceleration Committee, the Innovation Advisory Committee helps to advise the agency on innovation in financial markets. So Crypto America has done a great job of kind of showing this and talking about what Mike Seelig has done. And then I think they just had Bo Hines on the show as well to talk about kind of like what the latest is. They went live with the USAT, the US version of Tether that Bo Hines is running. That is live now and is in production. So that's been good to see as well, guys. Overall, I mean, we're just seeing actual progress happen from the policymaker perspective in the innovation hub in the SEC Crypto Task Force. So again, it's one of those bear markets where it's like everything is happening in a bullish way, but prices just aren't reflecting it. But at some point, what you guys will see is that prices will reflect the news, and that's how you know there's been a bit of an inflection point. Until then, you kind of just stay safe, stay relaxed where you are. And stay strong in your holdings. And I mean, let's see if this gets through. I'm hoping for Q2. That's my take. So, guys, we're gonna take a quick commercial break. We're gonna get Gmoney up here in just a minute. And get him up ready to rock and roll. Last guest of the day on this awesome President's Day. He's been doing some really, really interesting things in the AI agent space. So we'll be right back and we'll get ready to go with Gmoney. Let's go.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on-chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Talk to AI like your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist. Yours, private, and here today. Visit near.ai to have a fully private chat experience.
Havachi is fast and private perps trading, secured by ZK with Celestia underneath. Go to hibachi.xyz to start trading today.
Looking for yield that stands out? Infinify gives you just that. Deposit stablecoins and earn far more than the current savings rate. Infinify is a battle-tested, reliable DeFi platform that is ready to go. Head to infinify.xyz. Open, stable, borderless. Frax is building the next generation of stablecoin infrastructure for the digital finance era. Visit frax.com to learn more today.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Talk to AI like your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist. Yours, private, and here today. Visit near.ai to have a fully private chat experience.
Hibachi is fast and private perps trading, secured by ZK with Celestia underneath. Go to hibachi.xyz to start trading today.
Looking for yield that stands out? Infinify gives you just that. Deposit stablecoins and earn far more than the current savings rate. Infinify is a battle-tested, reliable DeFi platform that is ready to go. Head to infinify.xyz. Open, stable, borderless. Frax is building the next generation of stablecoin infrastructure for the digital finance era. Visit frax.com to learn more today.
Yeet is built for big moments. The most fun you'll ever have with your crypto. Go to yeet.com to yeet into your next game. Go anywhere on chain instantly with Relay.link. Relay is closing in on $10 billion transferred. Go to Relay.link to bridge your assets now.
Talk to AI like your lawyer or your doctor or your therapist. Yours, private, and here today. Visit near.ai to have a fully private chat experience.
Hibachi is fast and private perps trading, secured by ZK with Celestia underneath. Go to hibachi.xyz to start trading today.
Looking for yield that stands out? Infinify gives you just that. Deposit stablecoins and earn far more than the current savings rate. Infinify is a battle-tested, reliable DeFi platform that is ready to go. Head to infinify.xyz. Welcome back to AI Supercycle, our premier AI show, airing every single week, presented by Near. We cover the ins and outs of decentralized AI, privacy, and the future of this massive technology.
Near is the blockchain for AI and the execution of AI native apps. You can check out Near's latest AI product at near.ai. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to AI Supercycle episode 21, powered by our friends at Near, their amazing Near.ai chat product, private chat, as well as Ironclaw. Not sure if Gmoney is familiar with Ironclaw quite yet. I know he is of OpenClaw. Gmoney, good to have you on the show, man. Welcome.
Hey,
back.
thanks for having me. How are you?
Good, man. I spent 4 hours setting up OpenClaw this weekend. I got it its own Gmail account, got it a Telegram. Got it cooking on Google Docs, so I'm getting there. I know that you've been doing some work. Maybe just catch us up, man. What's the last couple of weeks been like? I'm sure you've been one-shotted like the rest of us here.
Yeah, I'm super curious what your experience has been like on Telegram, because I originally set it up on Telegram and I was trying to set up channels. I think the the issue that I ran into is like it's capable of doing so many things that you want to tackle and have so many concurrent threads. And the way I've been trying to kind of frame working with OpenClaw is like it's a new employee in the organization that you need to like set up. You set up with the emails and this and that, and then like you're having different conversations on different things, right? And it's doing stuff and getting things done very quickly. So I quickly realized that I needed to have like threaded conversations for myself, so that, for instance, like I have a health channel, right, where I ask, it has all of my data, all my Whoop band data, and whatnot there, so I can ask it questions pertaining to my health. And I personally don't want to like context switch or be like, oh, like what, let's talk about, the content strategy. And then like the next thing is like, can I eat this for lunch? Right. So it's like, I was trying to set that up on Telegram with different channels and I couldn't figure it out. So then I ended up migrating to Discord against, I barely been active in Discord for the last couple of years, but I set up my own personal Discord where I can chat directly with my OpenClaw. And it's been like awesome because I have like all these different conversations in different channels. So more for myself than for the OpenClaw itself, because it can remember a lot of things cross channel. And that's been like a huge difference for me. So like when I want to like double click on a new thread or a new topic, I'm like, hey, like let's set up a new channel. We can talk about it over here. That to me was like a huge quality improvement that I noticed with it that I was missing when I first started. But like it takes a while. I'm sure like you're seeing it. Like I'm super curious as to like what your experience has been for 4 to 6 hours in. But like I see like a ton of promise there. But like it can get frustrating sometimes. Like sometimes I feel like I'm like, all right, cool. Like set up this cron job, do this daily at this time. And then like a day goes by. I'm like, wait a second. Like I was supposed to get a report at 9 a.m. And then I'll be like, what happened? It's like, oh, you're right. Like I told you that it was ready to go, but like it wasn't. I didn't do blah, blah, blah. And like you kind of, it's almost like you have to train it a couple times and like teach it. But then like it takes a while. So but it's been good. I've been like integrating it more and more into my workflows, which has been awesome.
Yeah, the single threaded kind of Telegram single chat only isn't great for like multiple like lines of work. I saw, I think it was like a guy from Solana, Vibu or something, put out his first thing that he did was he built a web app in OpenClaw that actually like creates more of like a Claude or ChatGPT like interface that has like different chats for different kind of like trains of thought. Within 4 to 6 hours, I learned about Google Cloud, OAuth keys, and also set up a couple cron jobs. Notice that sometimes I would send a text on Telegram and it would respond instantly sometimes, and other times it would take like 10, 15 minutes to respond. And I'm just kind of like, I didn't quite understand what the difference was between why I was getting imminent, like very fast responses and why I was getting slow responses. I don't know if you've had that experience.
I've had experience. So like what do you run it on a Mac Mini or are you running in the cloud?
On a Mac Mini, yeah.
So,
on an Ethernet as well.
I'm running mine on a Mac Mini. And one of the things I noticed is sometimes when I get those response time issues, I just like I just turn on the monitor on the Mac Mini and I say like restart gateway. For some, like it still is buggy, right? Like it's like it's incredible for like stretches of time, and then all of a sudden like it'll be like, wait, like why this should be like I asked you to like add this to my calendar, like this should be an almost instantaneous response. It shouldn't take you 4 to 5 minutes to respond. And then I'm like, all right, there's something wrong. And then like I'll go in there and like I can't figure it out. I'll be like, fix it, find out what's wrong, restart the gateway. Usually it's like a gateway restart issue that I feel like has to happen. But yeah, like it's not like 100%, but like still at the same time, I think when there's this much friction, that's where like a lot of the opportunity is. I think we've seen it in crypto, saw it with NFTs, like usually in these early markets, right? Being an early mover and figuring out how to deal with the friction is like super valuable, right? Like even to your point of like learning about Google Auth and Workspace and all that, like it is not the most intuitive,
No.
but it's much easier today than it was 6 months ago. I can tell you that. Like for me, like the aha moment happened like a little over a month ago when I saw Claude Code over on my timeline, like nonstop. And I hadn't like tried vibe coding in like about 6 months. I had taken like the second half of last year off on the vibe coding stuff. And I was like, holy shit, like I one-shotted a Telegram bot in 15 minutes, which I had never been able to do before. I was able, because like it became too technical, right? Like before, to your point of like, I think I'd gotten to those Google Auth screens in the past. And then I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And then it wouldn't be able to help me get through it. And then I'm just like, all right, well, like,
Yeah.
I got like 50% of the way there. Like, you know, maybe next time. And so, but now it's like you can complete stuff, right? And I think that that's like the real unlock here is that like you basically have an expert in whatever it is that you're dealing with to answer questions for you in real time, and you kind of don't need to ask other people for help. That's the thing that I think I like is the huge unlock, especially as I've been helping friends get set up on this, is like they're like, hey, can you walk me through this? And part of walking them through it is like, all right, as you're setting this up, open up like an LLM instance on the side. And if you run into questions, just like screenshot it and drop it in and just say, help me. And like, it'll help you better than like I ever can. And then just becoming used to that, right? Because like now, like I generally don't ask people questions. Like for instance, like if you were like the world's expert in podcasting, I now like, you know, maybe 6 months ago, I'd be like, yo, Andy, like, what should I do here? Blah, 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 this and that. Now, before I go to you, I'm like, all right, well, let me just ask Claude Code.
Opus
Claude.
4.6.
Yeah. And like, be like, hey, figure this out. And then if I still have questions, I can go to you. But like, for the most part, it'll give me like really good answers. I'm like, oh,
Opus will, yes.
Good. Yeah.
I've noticed Opus will give you extremely high quality answers. It does use a lot of tokens. I had to upgrade my tokens. I kept getting rate limited last night. But the other models weren't all that, you know, exciting to me. I tried all of them all, and you know, Robbie has through over the last couple of years. But it was this Opus 4.5 that has been like, oh wow, like from a writing perspective, from a reasoning perspective, this is actually really good.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed using Opus a lot, and like I was messing around with Minimax over the weekend, and it's good. I just like Opus is just so much better. I can't tell you what it is, but I feel like when I have a conversation with Opus, I can get to my end goal, and it intuitively understands what I'm trying to do, and like maybe reasons better. I'm not exactly sure. It just is more. It feels more intuitive when I'm interacting with it, and I feel like I get better outputs from it.
What are some of the biggest wins you've had since you've been, first of all, when did you set it up? And yeah, like take us through like your journey of just kind of the chronology of when you first set it up. What was your initial, you know, approach? And then how did that kind of spiral into what you ended up doing with it now?
With OpenClaw or with just
with OpenClaw?
With OpenClaw, I think I set it up maybe like it was either like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I tried setting it up when it like started going viral. I went out, I bought a Mac Mini. I tried setting it up. I got like super frustrated because I felt like I had lost because I was like in the zone with Claude Code. The biggest issue with Claude Code is that like I have to be in front of my computer in order to be like super productive, right? And I think the huge unlock that OpenClaw unlocked is that I can like be talking, like I could be on the go. I could be like on my way to the gym, have a good idea, be like, hey, like let's, you know, work on this. And then like, it'll work on it. And then by the time I like walk into the gym, it's like, all right, what's like the next thing? I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, I need to, oh, sorry, no cursing. I'm like,
You're
you know,
bro.
What's next? And so I think like it's been the highest, like the highs are so high where I'm like, oh my God, AGI is here. Like it's imminent. And then like, you know, 2 minutes later, it's like, oh yeah, I need the password to log into this. I'm like, you have the password. I gave it to you like 5 minutes ago. And it's like, no, I can't find it. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Right. And so it's been like very much like that, like highs and lows on it. But overall, like it's been getting better and like understanding how to work with it. it's been like super productive. Like I'm like, I mean, I redeployed my website yesterday, and I basically worked on it for like 3 or 4 days. I built out like a funnel for like my newsletter and whatnot, and like a whole strategy. And I did that all on my own with like no devs. And like I literally had like a bunch of people hit me up, be like, yo, who made your website? I'm like, I did. Right. And it's like there's like animation on there. It's not just like a static homepage. It's like there's like some pop-ups and stuff
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
sick. It's got
You
this
know?
like
So
Japanese font rolling on it through it. But one thing that you said is that it's like it's agent first, or like it's
yeah.
able to interacted with agents. Maybe you could just educate us and the community, like what does that mean? Like what is an agent first site? Like what capabilities are required? What do they look for? How do they operate when it comes to web browsing?
Right. So basically, I'm sure you guys, like, especially the more time you spend with like OpenClaw, you're gonna find that sometimes when you ask it to open a browser and do something on a site, it like burns tokens. It like eats them like the Cookie Monster. And so the key is like I would love to be able to access sites and be like, hey, like go on this site and get this information without it having to necessarily open up the browser and take screen. Because like I don't know the exact process, but from my understanding, it's almost like it opens up the browser, takes a screenshot, sends the screenshot to itself, says, okay, this is what you need to do, does the action, screenshot. So it takes a while and it burns tokens. Much easier if it can just like connect to the site, see all the data, download the data, what it needs, you know, what info it needs, and then like serve it back to you. It's just much more efficient. So my thesis is that like obviously in the future, this is how like a lot of content will be distributed, a lot of the way we're going to interact, and you kind of see it now is like I don't know what percentage of your search is used on one of the LLMs versus what used to be on Google, but like you'll be like, hey, like what's the best restaurant in this neighborhood that I want to go check out right now? And you kind of want to make your site or whatever content that you're serving as accessible to LLMs as possible, because they're going to be making that recommendation, right? So like, you know, you have SEO, which is search engine optimization, which has been the last, 30 years of the internet. And now you kind of need to make ones that like, I think it's called GEO. I don't know what the G stands for, but like, let's say GPT engine optimization, so that you can end up on those things. So one of the things that like when I was redoing the site, I was like, hey, let's make this as easily searchable for LLMs, so that like the content gets indexed and Gmoney and the site shows up on feeds and whatnot. And then I think Google released like the universal commerce protocol or something earlier this week. So then like I fed that into the LLM. I'm like, let's integrate this. And I thought one of the interesting things was, right, like if let's say you wanted to subscribe to the newsletter, right, and you were like, hey, like go subscribe to this newsletter. As of right, most sites would be like, all right, like do, open up Playwright or control the browser, enter it in and this and that. And again, it burns tokens. Whereas the way I set it up is like, you could be like, go sign up my email for the newsletter at this site. And it will like connect via like, I don't think it's the API, but like it'll connect to the site and it won't burn tokens, right? It'll be like much more efficient use of tokens. And then like it connects your email to the site. So all of a sudden you can like, and I think like a lot of the internet will be moving this way, because you're going to want like efficient AI browsing to happen. And so I'm just like, all right, like let's make this as efficient for AI as possible. And that was kind of like the way I built it out. And again, like it's just kind of like sitting there and being like, all right, well, this is what I think it should do. And when I compare this, like anytime I've deployed sites in the past and, how quickly and how many people need to touch it, especially not that the site was that complex, but like, to get those animations and, these effects that I wanted, like it would take time. And it was just kind of me going back and forth with the LLM while I've been working on like other things like concurrently while it happened, like pretty phenomenal. It just makes me even much more bullish on AI.
It costed you some tokens rather than 15K for a developer, 25K for a developer.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big takeaway. I think some of our community is gonna be curious, like how are you using OpenClaw to your advantage, right? You've got this website. which sounds awesome, guys. We'll link that in the description of the video. You also put a pretty banger post. Your meeting notes are useless until you do this. You say you recorded meetings for years and then you did absolutely nothing with them until you build a system that turns transcripts into content automatically. We do this live show every day. We are always posting content on Twitter. Talk to us about what is this meeting notes OpenClaw system that you've built. Kind of walk us through the implementation, what the value that you're getting out of this is.
Yeah, so basically, and it's not specific to OpenClaw. You can do this however you want. The key is just like setting up the system. So what ends up happening is, there's a lot of times I'd be on calls and I'd be like, oh, like that's like, that this is a good like convo thread to like post some content on. And then, maybe I'm on back-to-back calls, or I forget about it or whatever. Nothing ever happens, right? The call was recorded. Like I never go through the transcript because I don't have the time. And so what I ended up doing was I set up an API where I automatically download all of my transcripts from that day. And then I have a channel in my Discord. And this was like one of the first things that I built with AI, even before OpenClaw started getting ready, is like there'd be time, like obviously X open sourced their algorithm. So I pretty much downloaded that repo. I have a history of my content that I've made on X over the last 5 years. So it knows exactly how I write, and my style. And I downloaded that as well. So like I had this like mini site that I created for myself. It was one of the first things I did, was saying like I would type in a tweet in there, and based off of like what I typed, it would give me like 3 revisions that make it more likely to go viral on the algorithm. And that was like the first iteration of it. And so then what I ended up doing was like, all right, well, it'd be cool if I could connect my meeting transcripts to this tweet viral maker that makes things in my voice. And so I created like that workflow so that now like I could like be like, hey, remember that meeting, the meeting I had yesterday with these guys? We were talking about this. Give me like 3 drafts of a tweet based off of this part of the combo. And then it'll give me 3 things. And I'm like, all right, like I'll tweak it here and there. But for the most part, it sounds like exactly like me. And like, I can copy and paste it obviously and send it. And so like, to me, that's like been super valuable. And I'm sure you guys find stuff like that really interesting as content makers, because you always want to be putting out thoughtful pieces. Because like, you don't want to be putting out slop, right? Because like anybody can put out slop, but you want to be putting out like real thoughtful pieces and almost like curating the content that it generates and almost being like an editor, right? Like that's kind of like what I've been seeing as well, is like it's being more of a manager role as opposed to sitting there and creating the content and like spending the time. It's like, all right, well, I like this. This is like my line of thinking. This is said better than I was originally thinking about it. And now you can like you create like more content and streamline your process. So it's like that to me has been like a huge unlock. I want to be messing around with like video content probably in the back half of this week. But like for me, like the X content and the written stuff was like the first thing to get down. And like I feel pretty comfortable with like how that is. And it's been a huge unlock for me. I love it because like even like after a call, I can be like, hey, or even like the next day, be like, hey, oh yeah, I just remembered like we were talking about this. Like draft up a couple of tweets for me and I can review them.
Yeah, I mean, Rob, that sounds very relevant to our daily streams. We can make so much content over hours. Just putting that together into actual, Twitter content, LinkedIn content, etc.
Yeah, I was just saying, I wonder if there's an OpenClaw cron job that could run, so you don't even have to remember the meeting, right? It just automatically sends the transcript and generates a few tweets for you.
Yeah. So it does do that. Like I have one that like in case like I forget or whatever, and it'll be like based off of like yesterday's meetings. These are like some things that like I like could be viral, right? And it'll send me a couple, and it's not perfect because like I say no to like 90% of them, but like at the very least, it's like it's generating ideas, which is great, and like it's not like me sitting there being like, oh yeah, like I think this will work or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, I like that. This is like my line of thinking. It was like it's been giving me,
block, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there and you're like, what's gonna, and then it just gives you some like prompting to be able to go.
Right. Yeah, no, it's great.
I think our audience is going to be particularly interested in this one. I think anyone in crypto will. You tweeted that you let an AI test 88,000 trading strategies over 10 years of market data, and the winner made money every single year, never lost more than 3% from the peak. And I think that you've started to now implement this. People are asking about like where the convergence between crypto rails and having a wallet, X402, agentic payments, algorithmic trading. Where does that intersect actually with AI? Seems like this is an interesting pathway. What's going on here? What's the latest, and how did you even do this?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll preface it with the fact that I was a professional trader for 17 years. So I know a lot about trading and risk management, and building out an algorithmic trading strategy was something I've wanted to do for a really long time. So I could never afford it, right? Like I had hired programmers. Back testing took way longer. The like programmers were, I felt like if a programmer understood markets really well, I couldn't afford them. So like, the programmers I could afford didn't understand markets really well and didn't understand liquidity well enough to be like, yeah, like this like makes the back test obsolete. Like it's unusable because of like liquidity concerns and stuff and slippage and whatnot. So one of the things I've always wanted to do, even like the first time I tried out ChatGPT when it first dropped a couple of years ago, is like I want to build out the back testing strategy because like I know what needs to be done. I just couldn't make it before, right? Like I would have to tell a developer what I was thinking. And now I'm like, I don't need that developer. I can like tell it what I'm thinking. So I, spent like the last couple of weeks building out a back testing engine, right? And like a workflow to back test ideas and then feeding it those ideas and have it back test stuff. And then I had like 4 strategies that like made it through out of like a bunch of strategies that I back tested. Now like I set it up to start paper trading. It was this past Friday was the first time we paper traded. And then,
And where did you trade? And like, how did the
uh,
agent get the access to or how did the strategy get the access to the account or whatever it was?
so I did it on Interactive Brokers, and
Yep.
I'm like connected to Interactive Brokers, right? And so it's like
Got it.
there's so much API documentation out there on it that it was just like set it up on his own.
Yep.
And like the crazy thing with this is I was talking to a quant friend of mine. He's like, dude, like it used to take like a year ago, 2 years ago, it used to take like 2 to 3 days to set up like the IB API because it was like very complex. And like, I told it it's like get this done, and it did it. And the funny thing is like like on Thursday night, and I was like, okay, everything's ready. And then I was like, wait, what language do we build the engine in? And it was like, oh, it's in Python. And I'm like, all right, well, since we're going to be dealing with like live market data and speed and execution matter, rebuild this in Rust because Rust is like the gold standard for fast execution. It's just that nobody really builds in Rust because it's it's a much more complex language. So then it rebuilt the entire system in Rust that night, like as I was going to bed. I think it worked for like 45 minutes on it and rebuilt it. And then in the morning, like I ran it. So it was just like it was just like very, very cool. And so like I'm paper trading it right now with live data, but not real money. And then if it continues performing well over the next like 2-3 weeks, I'm gonna put a small amount of money towards it. And
Yep.
then again, it's like one of those things like, am I gonna put my entire like I'll use an example. I created a Polymarket bot and I put $250 into it to like, because everybody's talking about how much money they're making on Polymarket and this and that. So I'm like, all right, like let's build the Polymarket bot, like let's mess around with this. I put $250 on it, and I had a $10 max bet size limit. So like I'm like, you shouldn't bet more than $10. And then I don't know, for whatever reason, whatever happened, it bought $200 worth of like, will Elon tweet less than like 14 times in the month of March? And it bought it at 99 cents when there was like no market. So it's like it immediately lost $200 like in the first like half second. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm like, I thought we had position limits on it. And it's like, oh, sorry, blah, blah, blah. And came up with some excuse. But like, obviously, once there's real money on the line, right? Like every mistake matters. So it's like, but I'm the type of person that like I learn by doing, right? Like this is like how I, found stuff early in crypto. This is how I got involved with NFTs early. Is like, it's one thing to be theoretical and, you know, study stuff and you read all the tweets, you know, because like, especially with AI, like you could waste the entire day being like, oh my God, like that's really cool. I want to do that one day and I want to make the perfect system and this and that. But for me, at least, it's like I learn by doing. And if I learn something new, it's like, oh, this will make your process faster. It's like, cool. Like you can implement it into the process or just scrap it all over and start again, because like the cost, you no longer are paying like the dev costs, right? Like it's like it'll be redone in like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Gmoney, at a high level, like I'm just curious if you could take us through, if you're open to it, take us through more of the Discord channels, because this sounds like you're kind of like your control panel, if you will, for OpenClaw, and then you've got each of the channels, you know, for a particular purpose. Like, do you mind just running down what some of these channels on Discord are?
Yeah, okay. I'll go. So one of them, I created a breaking news channel so that if there's news that comes out, like right now it's focused on AI, it posts stuff in there. I have a general channel, which is I have like most of my combos happen in there. I have a couple of channels for different projects that I'm working on. One for health. So like all my health stuff goes through there. A poly market channel. I created a legal channel, so I have kind of like my in-house counsel. So like if somebody sends me a contract, I'll have it review it, to, you know, make flags, make red lines. I can send it back. That guy's called Saul Goodman. I think a really interesting thing about a lot of these AI agents that you see, that people are naming them after like archetypes that exist in like the real world. So like my research agent is called Millhouse, right? Because I'm like, I don't know, like who's like a nerdy guy that like I would trust
from The Simpsons.
And so I'm like, yeah, Millhouse. Yeah. So Millhouse from The Simpsons, Saul Goodman, and like my doctor's called Dr. Sage, right? And so I have a trading channel. I have one for like X and posting on there, one on BitTensor. I started a validator last week. Actually, it's been up. I just got like an update. It's been up for 6 days on post fiat. And like these are things that like I never, you know, running a miner or running a validator is something I never could have done before because I just wasn't technical enough to set it up. And like I was able to set up the post fiat validator in like under an hour, and it's been running, and like it's just really cool. It's allowing me to participate in different networks in different ways. And so like one of the things that I've been doing is like trying to figure out how to set up miners on the BitTensor network, because I'm still really bullish on that long term. And then I think one interesting thing, I'm probably going to tweet about this like in a day or two, is I have a daily Shark Tank every morning, so that when I wake up, it pitches me like 5 to 10 ideas of things that it could do autonomously on its own to make money without me, like with me doing as little work as possible. And so then based on what it pitches me, I give it feedback, yes or no, what I like, what I don't like. Then it goes back to the drawing board, works on it that night, and then pitches me again in the next day. So I have one that like it pitched me last week that I liked. We ended up buying a domain, built out the funnel in like an hour or two. Now like a lot of it's like refining and stuff like that, but it's like SEO optimized, all of these things that like I don't know if I'll be able to launch it this week because I have a couple other projects, but like I think you'll get it launched pretty quickly, and that it would it would do pretty well. So there's just like a lot of cool things that you can do. And I think the interesting thing with all this is like each of your guys' agents will be very different than mine, right?
Yeah,
so it's like it's like they're going to develop their own personalities, because it's like we're all different. We're all very good at different skill sets, right? So what I think like a lot of these agents are going to do is they're going to amplify the things that you're really good at, because they're probably also things that you like to do, right? So it's really going to give like the people that really harness them like superpowers.
And are you seeing each of the agents in each of these channels? They're all part of the one same OpenClaw instance. Is that the case?
Or are they like spawning sub agents? Because I know that there's like sub agents, and then they just pushed another update that allowed children of individual sub agents. So is this like sub agents, or is this just like one different instances?
So the way I have it is I have one main agent that I chat with. And then I have basically like I have fed it like I think it was the OpenAI sub agent model framework into it. I'm like, based off of this, come up with a framework for sub agents. Tell me what you think like we should do here. And then it utilized like the questions and the combos that I had is like, hey, we should do a research agent, a lawyer agent, and a health doctor agent, right? Not a doctor because no medical advice, obviously. And so it spawned up those sub agents. I can speak to those sub agents in their direct channels, but they all share like information between each other so that like they can access different information from each other. I think it can still get a little messy, at least for me. Maybe I don't have like the exact right controls in place, but I have found that pretty interesting and pretty good so that I can, and like I've been messing around with it because like for a while I was just like everything through my main agent, it spins up sub agents on its own when it thinks it needs to. But then I'm like, all right, well, people keep talking about how there's a ton of value in having like an attorney agent that just focuses on law and understands, contract law and whatnot. And like somebody that focuses just on medical, on, the things I'm interested in the medical field. So I've been messing with that and I like it. It's been very good. And so I am still like trying to figure out the framework. But anytime I have questions, like I literally just talk to my OpenClaw on it. It's like, well, what do you think? Let's run some research. Let's find some stuff out there. I'm sure there's stuff on X that just came out. So like do an X, shout out to Frank D Gods because I use his X research app a lot, or his GitHub and that skill a ton. But just like stuff like that. So it's like you can stay on top of like breaking stuff as it comes out. But that's kind of like the framework that I've adopted is like, being like, hey, and then I think I'm going to periodically do it where it's like based on the combos, you think I need a new agent. And if so, what do you recommend? Right.
Yeah. I'm wondering if I need to switch to Discord. So you've got the Whoop completely, like I've got the Whoop here. You've got it connected to like how'd you connect that? I mean, I could just ask.
So you can ask it. Like basically, there's like
I don't need to waste your time here, man.
But there's like a developer site that you basically just like log in. It like will set it up and they'll connect it, and then you get the data.
Super good.
Yeah, it's very easy.
Before you go, you mentioned Frank D God's like one of the top skills that you're using from that GitHub to Access X. Just what are your top like 3, 4, 5? Like what are your top 5 skills that you find yourself using?
To be honest, I don't really know because like it autonomously like uses them when
it'll go find the skills on its own, right?
Well, no, but like I'll like sometimes like I've downloaded skills or like the coolest thing that OpenClaw does that I think is really cool is like let's say I look at something on X and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to bookmark this for later. What I've started doing instead of bookmarking it for later is I just copy and paste the tweet into I just paste the link into the chat and I'm like, hey, read this over and is there anything that we can implement into our workflows? And then it'll like make it it'll be like, hey, we could add this would make our workflows better. These I recommend we do these 3 things. Do you want to implement them? And I'm like, all right, cool, like let's implement them. And then like he'll implement that. And so it's like I kind of like don't need to necessarily learn the skill. It's like I think what's going to become hyper important in the age of AI is curation, right? Like what is it that I need to know and what is it that I can kind of like give off to the AI and not need to worry about, right? So it's like a hyper, like how the X research skill works. I don't really need to know that, right? I just need to know that like I type something in and it goes out and it gets that stuff on the internet and brings it back to me. But maybe like some macro piece on the world economy and like where the world is headed, like that's like, that's always been like a good skill set of mine. And I like, reading on that. So yeah, like I want to be up to date on like the thinking there. Right. And so it's like, you just have to be hyper vigilant about where you're spending your time. And it's like, what do you delegate to AI as something? It's like, yeah, like I don't need to know this. I just need to know that it can get done. And then being like, I need to know this because this will form my decision-making on future things.
Yeah. Gmoney, man, thanks for your time. I've got a lot to do with my OpenClaw. after this conversation, and we appreciate you coming on. Where can our audience find you? Where can we get be a part of your newsletter, follow what you're doing from the trading side, from the AI side? How can we get involved?
Yeah, for sure. So on X, Gmoney NFT, Instagram, same handle. And, I just relaunched my website at g.money. And from there, like, you can go check out the website, sign up for the newsletter. You could also just tell your AI agent to sign up for the newsletter at g.money with your email, and it should be able to go and do it on its own.
Dude.
This feels like we've hit our limit of Gmoney tokens. We're gonna have to buy more Gmoney tokens and have you on again soon, man.
Let's see if so my OpenClaw is Chef Clanker. That's his name. Can you sign up for Gmoney newsletter
through the API?
Through the API,
or else you're gonna burn tokens.
The lion does not concern himself with burning tokens. All right, let's see what we get here, and then we'll let you go. Chef Clanker is putting in work. I'm getting a reminder to tweet about a rumor mill to follow up with a. All right, found the site, gmoney.beehive.com. No.
Okay, that should work. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if Gmoney it'd be gmoney.beehive. G.money maybe.
The sign up page is Yahoo Groups now in the browser access. Just give me the direct sign up field I can drive. Go to g.money. Yeah, so I've got it set up with its own email, and it's going there now. So there we go. He's going to the browser.
Ooh, okay, he shouldn't be going to the browser.
Okay. Got it. His track record paid. Okay. There should be a newsletter sign up form. Want to connect the browser tab so I can fill it out. Same issue as before. I need browser access, or you can manually subscribe. No, just do it through the API. Let's see here. Anyway, guys, I think we can probably close up shop here, but let's see. I just want to see if this guy.
Gmoney, I don't know if you use Whisper Flow, but I find myself talking to it.
I love Whisper Flow. I found out yesterday I'm in the top 1% of words per minute talkers. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm being efficient with my time. But I Whisper Flow is, I even Whisper Flow like my text messages now because it's so fast and convenient.
Yeah, and the dictation is so accurate.
It's better than like the Apple push to, like, it's better than any of the other apps that I've used. So it's been awesome. I love it. And like, I literally will just sit there and I'll like word vomit for like 3 or 4 minutes of like things that like I'm thinking or want or whatever. And then like, get like product that I want. So it's cool. I like it.
Gmoney, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for being a part of AI Supercycle episode 21. Guys, that about wraps us up with this episode of the show. Thanks, Gmoney.
All right. Thanks for having me.
See you next time. Thanks, man.
Cheers, man.
Right.
All right. Chef Clanker is getting a little butthurt here about the accessibility via API. So we need to tune him up a bit after the show. Unfortunately, he's struggling here, but I think we'll figure it all out. Guys, thanks for being a part of the show. Monday, February 16th. We'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out.